Chapter 2771. If hell is not emptied, we are not done. Clang. There was another loud clang as the ancient bell grew to become a humongous golden bell that shrouded the elder's figure. Dazzling divine light flowed over the imperial arm. It was indestructible. The divine ruler crashed onto the imperial arm. A loud clang erupted, causing the ancient bell imperial arm to fly downwards. The entire domain was shaken. The ancient bell flew towards the elder. However, the other party shifted together with it. The power of the great path in his body became one with the bell, and it securely protected him. It is an imperial arm that covers both offense and defense, some people thought when they saw this scene. If that was the case, the elder was undefeatable. Although Yi Futian had powerful combat ability, shattering an imperial arm was far-fetched. It was practically impossible for him to penetrate the elder's defenses. However, Yi Futian coldly snorted. The light of the divine ruler surged out and formed a gigantic ring that enveloped the ancient bell. Divine light of the great path of space burst forth from the ring. What is he doing? Many people thought as they narrowed their eyes. This ring kept expanding, and then it consumed the ancient bell. The latter sank into the former and was engulfed by it gradually. When it was defending, the ancient bell lost its attack power. It could not destroy the ring or intercept it. It could only be gradually consumed. As the ancient bell sank into the ring, the parts of it that sank into the latter vanished. It was as though they were no longer present in this space. The expression of the elder within the imperial arm changed slightly. His opponent was consuming his imperial arm with an independent great path of space. By the time he realized this, the spatial ring had already consumed the bell along with him. The ancient bell and the elder inside it both disappeared. Only the ring still remained. It was its own independent space and had swallowed up the other party. Yi Futian waved his hand, and the power of space instantly surged out. The ring immediately traversed space and disappeared from its original spot. It seemed to have been banished by Yi Futian to a far-off place, bringing along the elder and the imperial arm. As a result, what was originally a 2-against-2 scenario became 2 versus 1. Yi Futian and Yu Sheng were both present, whereas only Di Hao remained on the human realm's side. Yu Sheng and Yi Futian were both powerful combatants. Di Hao was already having a hard time dealing with Yu Sheng alone. If Yi Futian joined in now, what would the outcome be? Yi Futian wielded the divine ruler and advanced. The will of the great path furiously burst forth from his figure. Before this, his battle with Di Hao had been interrupted by the elder and later became a 2-on-2 battle. Now that one person had been banished by Yi Futian, he would not hold back. They appeared to be the scariest of demons as they wielded dark demonic sabers that contained world-destroying might. They unleashed the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon. At the same time, Yu Sheng stood before Di Hao and became the demonic lord. His jet-black eyes were terrifying. Under such circumstances, Di Hao already had his hands full dealing with Yu Sheng. He could not spare any attention for Yi Futian. The expressions of the cultivators of the human realm changed when they saw this scene. They wanted to charge over to help, but Yang Yi and the others were not ordinary figures. The lineup of Devil Imperial Palace was not weak at all. They held off the cultivators of the human realm, preventing them from interfering in Yu Sheng's battle. Bang! With a loud bang, the silhouette of the divine human was struck again by the divine ruler and shattered. Yi Futian had attacked. Many gazes shifted towards where Yi Futian stood. His attacks rained down continuously. The phantasms of the divine human were all destroyed. High up in the sky, Yu Sheng's saber and Yi Futian's divine ruler both slashed down. Rumble. A dull thud could be heard. Even with the divine human unleashing its power to the max, it could not withstand the combined attack of 2 top prominent figures. Di Hao was swept away and sent flying outwards. With a dull groan, he vomited fresh blood. Yu Sheng still did not cease his attacks, sending another saber slashing down. Di Hao became the divine human and was gigantic. Divine power surged as he attempted to catch the demonic saber cleaving down on him. However, he also had to withstand a terrifying power. He relied on space, and the power of the heavens and the earth became his own. He formed a wall of the great path around him. This part of the sky also became part of his own body. It lit up with divine halos. The space even seemed to warp as it swept towards Futian's figure. When Futian saw this, he did not stop. He waved the divine ruler and formed a domain. He stood within the absolute space and was not affected by external influences. The divine ruler slashed down furiously and shattered the distorted space. It then struck the wall of the great path and caused the divine human phantasm to once again cough up blood. Its face turned pale. B. The demonic saber continued cleaving down, splitting the space like chopping up bamboo. Futian's divine ruler also struck out again, sweeping towards the divine human. They were determined to shake Defy up. Bang! 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 Endless domineering attacks continued to rain down. The space was exploding frenziedly. The figure of the divine human shattered with a loud bang. Defy returned to his original form and was sent flying far out into the distance. He kept throwing up fresh blood. He had taken a considerable blow. His injuries were already severe. Yu Sheng and Futian still wanted to continue attacking. However, the light of Buddha radiated, and they saw it envelop Defy's body. His body then disappeared from his original spot. They looked in another direction and saw a Buddha Lord with his palms together. Defy had been taken away by him. Wutian Buddha Lord, Futian greeted the person and stopped pursuing Defy. Wutian Buddha Lord was kind to him in the past. Celerity, which Futian practiced, had the same root as Wutian Buddha Lord. To Futian's surprise, the other party saved Defy. Amitabha, Wutian Buddha Lord chanted while putting his hands together. He said, "Benefactor Yi, please spare him." Futian similarly put his hands together and said, "Buddha Lord, I am sure you saw what happened. I did not attack him first, but I was forced to defend myself because of his aggressive attacks. This war will surely result in countless deaths in the cultivation world. I hope Benefactor Yi can stop this war," Wutian Buddha Lord pleaded. He was full of mercy and had compassion for all living beings. Futian replied, "This war is not something I can stop on my own. Who would listen to me in the 7 realms? Wutian Buddha Lord, the world of Buddhism is well aware of the cause of the war among the 7 realms. Why is there a war now?" Yang Yi stopped fighting as well. He looked at Wutian Buddha Lord and questioned, "After the collapse of the heavenly path, the cultivation world is supposed to belong to everyone. Yet, why is the devil world trapped underneath the devil abyss? For countless years, we have been suffering due to the devil abyss." Wutian Buddha Lord responded, "Suffering is part of living. Benefactor Yang, what you said is not something I can solve. If the heavens and the earth give birth to an almighty figure, that person might be able to deliver you from your agony." Yang Yi continued, "Since that's the case, wouldn't it be fairer for each realm to take turns guarding the devil abyss? There is a Buddhist saying, if I don't go to hell, who will? Could it be that it is just lip service?" Wutian Buddha Lord did not respond. "If hell is not emptied, the devil world is not done," Yang Yi said in a voice as cold as ice. Chapter 2772 Buddha of Destiny. Rumble. Just as Yang Yi finished his sentence, frightening divine light appeared in the heavens. It seemed that a space passage had opened. Beams of unparalleled divine light shone down, forming a unique path. Countless people looked up in that direction. A menacing aura emanated from within the passageway. "Who is it?" someone asked in a low voice. Futian and the others also looked up in that direction. Astonishing beams of divine light shot out from the space passage and descended upon the land. Then, existences like ancient gods emerged. Each of them had extremely terrifying auras. Divine power surged from their figures. It was as though ancient gods had descended upon the world. Defy was stunned upon seeing the arriving cultivators. Then, he regained his senses. He revealed a strange look as he thought to himself, "They actually came here." The other top figures from the human realm also narrowed their eyes in surprise as they stared at the arriving cultivators. The cultivators looked down from the heavens above and glanced at the top figures present here. Then, they fixed their gazes on Defy. Human ancestor has assigned us to come to war, one of them said. Di Hao nodded slightly. After that, they swept a glance at Yi Futian, Yi Qingyao, and the rest of their group. Immediately, Yi Futian felt a terrifying might pressing down on him. Many cultivators were puzzled when they sensed this mighty pressure. They had never known of such terrifying figures existing in the human realm. On the other hand, the leaders of the top forces vaguely knew of the existence of these mighty figures. However, their hearts couldn't help but tremble when they finally saw these figures in person. The leaders from the human realm were especially in awe since they could recognize a few faces from the arriving group. Of course, the top figures from the Emperor-level forces were well aware of the identity of the arriving group. Since they were part of the Emperor-level forces, they naturally knew some secrets. Nevertheless, such affairs were not widely known even among members of the Emperor-level forces. Even the insiders did not know the details. Yi Futian also did not have any inside scoop. His brows were tightly knitted as he withstood the might. His facial expression changed slightly. The auras of each of these cultivators were frightening. All of them were near deities. Since when did such a domineering group exist? Moreover, they seemed to be from the same force, the human realm. As expected, mumbled Supreme Sword Lord. He scanned across the stupefied crowd and communicated with Yi Futian via transmitted thoughts, "Be careful. They are all monstrous figures from the older generation. Although they appear young, they have been cultivating for ages. They have gone into seclusion for many years. That's why their names no longer ring a bell to the people in the world even though they are still alive. From the looks of it, they have indeed become the hidden triumph cards of the Emperor-level forces. The world has undergone rigorous changes, yet they have actually remained hidden until now. Before this, Yi Futian had heard of similar rumors. The cultivation world had given birth to countless cultivators. Many of them had perished, and only a few of them had cultivated to the strongest plane. Nevertheless, even though they were rare occurrences, there were still numerous old monstrous figures alive. Yi Futian had encountered a few of them before this. These ancient cultivators rarely appeared in public and did not come in contact with anyone. They left right after they seized the relics. Cultivators from the older generation like Supreme Swordlord could not even be considered ancient. There existed cultivators even more senior than them. From the looks of it, these Emperor-level forces had kept some mighty cultivators hidden as their trump cards. These ancient cultivators were most likely under the direct jurisdiction of human ancestor. Obviously, Di Hao was not qualified to command them. Therefore, he was shocked when he saw them. Does the human realm plan to have a showdown? Yang Yi glanced at the ancient cultivators who had just made their appearance. He showed no sign of fear. His eyes were ablaze with intense battle intent. He wanted to experience firsthand exactly how potent these ancient cultivators were. Were they more robust than the cultivators ranked on the current near-deity list? Rumble. An ultimate might suddenly loomed over everyone. A terrifying storm churned above the cultivators. A dark phantasm appeared and covered a part of the sky. "It is the Dark Sovereign," exclaimed the various cultivators as they looked up into the sky. The powerful pressure swept down. However, no one spoke. Only intense pressure filled the skies. Then, terrifying auras appeared one after another. There were a few auras in the sky. Right now, the various cultivators understood that the wills of the great emperors had arrived. If they wanted to, they could offer insights into everything that happened here at any given moment. Amitabha. Just then, a golden beam of the light of Buddha shone down and illuminated this part of the sky. An ancient Buddha made his appearance. He came from another world. Unlike other Buddha lords, who were relatively chubbier, this ancient Buddha was small and gaunt. His face looked extremely old, as though he was close to death. However, he emanated a solemn aura. When the various Buddhas from the Western world spotted him, they bowed and paid their respects to him. Even the arrogant medicine Buddha Lord bowed and greeted the arriving Buddha Lord. "Greetings, Buddha Lord," the various Buddhas said as they placed their palms together politely. This caused the various cultivators to narrow their gazes. They shifted their eyes towards the Buddha Lord. They were astonished at the other party's status. Who was this Buddha Lord? Very few people had seen this Buddha Lord before. Nevertheless, a Buddha Lord greeted by the various Buddhas would undoubtedly be of high prestige. This small and skinny Buddha Lord similarly bowed back at the various Buddhas. From his merciful gaze, one could not tell that he was a powerful Buddha Lord. "He is a Buddha Lord," uttered some of the top figures of the other forces as they recognized him. They also greeted him with a bow. Even Donghuang Diyuan greeted the Buddha Lord and bowed. She was extremely polite. Clearly, this Buddha Lord had extraordinary standing. Donghuang Diyuan knew who he was and showed him great respect. "He is Buddha of Destiny," Yi Futian secretly thought to himself. He similarly bowed slightly and greeted the Buddha Lord. Buddha of Destiny was an ancient Buddha of the highest level in the world of Buddhism. His status was extraordinary. He was not fond of battles and had never participated in the conflicts of the world. He had devoted his time to comprehending Buddhist techniques. He succeeded in proving his way and became Buddha of Destiny. Buddha of Destiny cultivated one of the 6 Buddhist superpowers, omniscient. Ordinary people could not cultivate this superpower. Even in the world of Buddhism, aside from Buddha of Destiny, no one else had ever successfully cultivated omniscient. That was the case for even the Buddha. "I never imagined that you would appear on the battlefield, Master." "What brings you here?" asked Yang Yi. As a demonic cultivator, he was powerful and overbearing. He could not stand the world of Buddhism and even called them Jaka says. He believed they were hypocritical. However, even Yang Yi showed some level of respect towards Buddha of Destiny and called him Master. "I came to quell this war," said Buddha of Destiny. He lowered his head slightly. He did not have the arrogance of a Buddha Lord and appeared extremely humble. "We are heading towards war among the 6 realms. How do you plan to quell it, Master?" inquired Yang Yi. Everyone understood that the 6 realms, which had been at peace for centuries, were about to be thrown into war. No one could prevent it from happening. It was inevitable. The heavens and the earth are about to undergo a huge change. It's unwise to increase the number of deaths unnecessarily, Buddha of Destiny declared while putting his hands together. Chapter 2773 Prophecy. For many years, a prophecy had been circulating around. The changes of the world would begin in the original realm. Now, the world was already beginning to change. The ruins of the gods appeared in the world, and the cultivators from various realms surged to the ruins for relics. Countless people went through transformations and improved their cultivation. Many prominent figures surfaced, and the talented young cultivators assumed leadership positions. They slowly rose to the peak of the cultivation world. Cultivators like Donghuang Diyuan, Di Hao, Yi Futian, Yu Sheng, Yi Qingyao, and Ji Wudao gradually reached their heyday. Moreover, they would surely attain even more glorious achievements in the future. However, this was naturally not the end of the changes in the world. How would the future unfold? Currently, many people had already found out that this prophecy originated from the western heaven of the world of Buddhism. Since that was the case, the prophet who made the statement was most likely Buddha of Destiny, who now stood before them. Buddha of Destiny cultivated omniscient. No one knew how proficient he was in this Buddhist superpower, but it was highly likely that he could catch a glimpse of the future. His prophecy about the changes to the world had come to pass. Had Buddha of Destiny foreseen even more significant changes occurring? Yang Yi roared, "The changes of the world might have been triggered by the war of the 6 realms. It is an inevitable trend and cannot be stopped. The war is also a part of the changes." Buddha of Destiny responded, "The world will soon welcome even more major changes. Everything will be reformed. This war is not an inevitable trend. The great emperors are the mightiest existences in the cultivation world, and they rule over the 6 realms. They view others as their chess pieces. However, all living beings are equal. Since the ending has been decided, why should we sacrifice lives in vain? If war erupts, countless cultivators from the 6 realms will perish. Why should we put ourselves through this agony?" After Buddha of Destiny said this, he bowed towards the high heavens and pleaded, "Great emperors, please hear my plea. Please cease fighting so that we can avoid a disaster. Even though he looked gaunt, the light of Buddha shone brightly from his figure. He emanated a golden light, which caused the crowd to revere him. Buddha of Destiny rarely appeared in public. After so many years, very few people recognized him. Even if he traveled around, such a scraggy elder would not draw anyone's attention. However, he had come out from seclusion this time to beg for the compassion of the great emperors so that a war could be avoided. This war was a war among the imperial palaces of the 6 realms. If it continued, it would brew into something larger in scale and expand to other places. Currently, this continent had become a battlefield. If the fighting continued, countless cultivators would lose their lives. Buddha of Destiny had great compassion. Hence, he had come out of seclusion and rushed here to plead with the great emperors to stop fighting. Dazzling, colorful lights covered a spot in the sky. A phantasm appeared from the lights, and the figure actually bowed towards Buddha of Destiny. He seemed to have great respect for the latter. He said politely, "Since Buddha Lord has spoken, I, Dong Huang, will surely oblige. The cultivators of the Divine Prefecture will withdraw from this war." His voice reverberated in the vast space. Everyone ceased fighting and looked up to the sky. Even the great emperor had personally come. Therefore, there was no need for them to continue battling. The crowd wondered about the identity of the Buddha Lord who had spoken. Even Dong Huang the Great bowed to him. Was the Buddha of the Western Heaven here? "Many thanks, Your Highness," Buddha of Destiny responded as he bowed towards the sky. Dong Huang the Great gave the world of Buddhism face by being the first to second Buddha of Destiny's plea. After all, he used to seek the way in the world of Buddhism, so he was considered half a Buddhist disciple. "All of you, come back." Another voice sounded. Immediately, the few ancient cultivators, who had come from the human realm, transformed into beams of light and left the battlefield in a dash. They had come for the war. Their retreat meant that Human Ancestor also supported Buddha of Destiny's plea. Although Human Ancestor did not show himself, his voice could be heard from the heavens. This time, Dark Sovereign instigated the war of the 6 realms, therefore, I ordered my men to stop his massacre by killing his members. I have done so to prevent the masses from being killed in vain. Since Buddha of Destiny has spoken, the human realm is willing to take a step back. However, if the dark world still refuses to stop, the human realm will purge the darkness to restore order to the world. "Many thanks, Human Ancestor," Buddha of Destiny said as he bowed again towards the sky. Human Ancestor had an extraordinary status because he was the most ancient great emperor among the 6. He had been very courteous with Buddha of Destiny by commanding his men to stop fighting. The stance of the world of Buddhism went without saying. Buddha of Destiny was a member of the upper echelon in their world. His stance represented that of their world. The righteous sides, including the human realm, the Western Heavenly World, and the Divine Prefecture, were all willing to stop the war. It was all up to the Devil World, the Dark World, and the empty Divine Realm. "Where did that Jack *SS go? Why are you the only one here?" Another voice sounded from the sky. Terrifying demonic might accompanied the voice, churning and roaring. Obviously, the will of the Devil Emperor had arrived. The Jack *SS that he mentioned was undoubtedly the Buddha, who was as powerful as the great emperors. To my knowledge, the Buddha is currently cultivating in the colorless heaven. Hence, he has not come over this time, Buddha of Destiny replied while bowing in the direction where the Devil Emperor's voice sounded. He was not offended by the way the other party addressed the Buddha. The 6 great emperors were supreme existences on another level compared to the rest of them. Buddha of Destiny had no say in their speech or actions. What is he trying to do? Purge himself? The Devil Emperor teased coldly. "I have a question for you. Since you prophesied that the world is about to change, exactly what kind of changes will it go through? Could it be that there will be new great emperors?" "I dare not reveal the secrets of the future," Buddha of Destiny responded. "Don't try to play tricks with me. You don't dare to reveal the secrets of the future. In that case, who was the one that came up with the prophecy?" The Devil Emperor chided coldly. "That Jacka *S is not here now. What if I insist that you answer my question?" Devil Emperor, you are a great emperor, yet you bully a medicine Buddha Lord joined the conversation while looking in the direction where the Devil Emperor was. Shut up. You are not qualified to speak here, the Devil Emperor interrupted him. With a domineering tone, he continued to pressure Buddha of Destiny, saying, of course, you can choose not to reveal anything. I won't attack you. But I will not agree to your request of withdrawing my troops. Rumor has it that once a cultivator has cultivated omniscient to its utmost limit, they can see through the fates of everyone. The superpower itself is full of wonders. Even though I don't believe in it, I am still somewhat curious. Master, exactly what kind of changes did you foresee? Human Ancestor joined the conversation. He sounded interested. Everyone knew that Human Ancestor did not believe in fate or destiny. He managed the order of the human world and thought that human will was stronger than destiny. According to legends, Human Ancestor was an ordinary man in the past. During his era, there were way too many talented figures. He was not exceptional, yet he was firmly rooted in his belief. During the age when the gods ruled over the world, he remained steadfast to his belief that the gods were merely very powerful cultivators. He insisted that once humans cultivated to their greatest potential, they could be on par with the gods, even with their mortal flesh. Humans were comparable to gods. The validity of this legend had yet to be verified. However, one could tell the belief of Human Ancestor based on this tale. He lived out his faith by ruling over the human realm and creating the divine human. Humans could also be gods. The divine human was formed from this belief. Therefore, Human Ancestor did not believe in the concept of fate preached in the world of Buddhism. Buddha of Destiny had a vision about the future, and he prophesied that the world would be changed. However, Human Ancestor did not trust a single word of it. I want to know too, said the evil emperor as his face surfaced in the sky. Now that 3 great emperors had expressed their interest in this matter, Buddha of Destiny would most likely be forced to reveal some details even though the former might not have evil intentions to harm him if he chose to remain silent. Amitabha. Buddha of Destiny put his palms together and said, everything in the world will be reformed. The age of the gods will come once again. His voice was solemn. As soon as he dropped this information, the crowd went silent. Nobody spoke a word. Everyone, including the 6 great emperors, focused their attention on Buddha of Destiny. Everything in the world would be reformed. The age of the gods would come once again. It was the age of the gods. Would they get the chance to experience a prosperous era like back in ancient times? After Buddha of Destiny spoke, his aura actually withered. He became even more feeble, as though his aura was being weakened continuously. Buddha Lord, exclaimed the cultivators of the Western heavenly world when they saw this scene. B or B. However, Buddha of Destiny behaved as though nothing had happened. He was not bothered by the changes at all. He continued to radiate a solemn light of Buddha. All things on earth have their destiny. I pried into the future and revealed a secret, so I will face the consequences, Buddha of Destiny said in a low voice. How will the world be reformed? Dark Sovereign's voice echoed in space. His goal was to reform the order of the world by allowing the world to be consumed by darkness. When it happened, everything would be reformed and this chaotic era would end. Now, what Buddha of Destiny prophesied was actually similar to what he imagined. Hence, he was curious to find out what exactly the former envisioned. Master is already in such a state. Dark Sovereign, I think we should stop asking, Donghuang the Great interceded. Dark Sovereign replied nonchalantly, since he has pried into the future, it doesn't make much difference for him to reveal a bit more. Buddha of Destiny shook his head and said, I am ashamed of myself. My power is not strong enough. I could only catch a glimpse of what would happen. As for how the world will be reformed, I have no idea either. Do you really have no clue, or are you keeping it a secret from us? Dark Sovereign continued to pressure Buddha of Destiny. Dark Sovereign, as the ruler of darkness, you should stop putting Buddha of Destiny in a tough spot, Human Ancestor intervened too. He said, even though Buddha of Destiny has predicted the changes of the world, I still firmly believe that fate is illusory. Humans are the existences who have control over all order. Clearly, Human ancestor had his doubts about Buddha of Destiny's words. What human ancestor said is true. With you controlling the order of the human realm, there will not be any new great emperors, someone mocked. The speaker was none other than the Devil Emperor. The crowd was perplexed because of his words. What did he mean? As long as human ancestor oversaw the order of the human realm, there would not be any new great emperors. What did the Devil Emperor mean by this? Human ancestor was not perturbed by the Devil Emperor's mocking. Instead, he calmly responded, Devil Emperor, you worry too much. Even though I don't believe in fate, I believe in history repeating itself. Since there was an age of the gods in ancient times, I am not surprised if it makes a comeback in the future. On the contrary, I look forward to it. I also think that the age of the gods will soon come again. All the cultivators present in this continent were listening to their conversation quietly. They were shocked by the news. The age of the gods was something of the ancient past. Since the collapse of the heavenly path, there had not been any new great emperors. How many people have managed to become great emperor since then? Becoming a great emperor was a common goal pursued by all the cultivators in the world. Even though this goal seemed almost impossible, countless cultivators still tried their best and worked hard towards achieving. Now, these colossal figures were discussing the age of the gods. Buddha of Destiny also prophesied its reenactment. A new era would come, and it would be a glorious one. This was definitely exciting news. What role would they play in this new era? Chapter 2774 Fate of the Emperor for 5 centuries. I look forward to the coming of the age of the gods, Donghuang the Great said. After cultivating for so many years, I often wonder how prosperous ancient times were. Is that so? Dark Sovereign said mockingly. How did Emperor Yi Qing perish back in the day? Emperor Yi Qing was the taboo of the divine prefecture. Others did not dare to discuss this matter, but not Dark Sovereign. Donghuang the Great was stunned momentarily. He remained silent and did not say anything. Amitabha. Just then, Buddha of Destiny said, I wish to offer your Highness Donghuang another piece of advice. Buddha Lord, please advise, replied Donghuang the Great as he nodded slightly. He still acted humble and polite, showing Buddha of Destiny great respect. Buddha of Destiny said, Your Highness Donghuang once cultivated in the world of Buddhism. At that time, you had yet to become a great emperor. Therefore, I was able to take a peek into your destiny. I noticed that you have the fate of the emperor. However, I discovered something else, which I have never told you before. Now, I want to remind you. Donghuang the Great revealed a strange look. The other great emperors also listened to this conversation attentively. Buddha of Destiny cultivated omniscient and could pry into someone's destiny. However, if the other party were a powerful figure, such as a great emperor, he would not be qualified to see into the former's future. Buddha of Destiny was not that proficient yet. Nevertheless, the crowd did not doubt his words when he said he saw a vision related to Donghuang the Great when the latter cultivated in the world of Buddhism. Speaking of which, the world of Buddhism placed high importance on Donghuang the Great in the past. He received personal guidance from the Buddha. Moreover, Buddha of Destiny envisioned him becoming a great emperor. Please speak your mind, Donghuang the Great said. Your Highness Donghuang is peerless in the divine prefecture, and you have the fate of the emperor. However, it will only last for 5 centuries. As Buddha of Destiny said this, he put his palms together and lowered his head. His words shocked countless people. The crowd, especially the cultivators from the divine prefecture, were greatly shocked. Their hearts trembled frenziedly. Donghuang the Great's fate as the emperor would only last for 5 centuries. He would be peerless for 5 centuries in the divine prefecture. Did it mean that his reign over the divine prefecture would only last for 5 centuries? This prophecy came like a bolt from the blue for the cultivators of the divine prefecture. It had been more than 400 years since Donghuang the Great unified the divine prefecture. There was not much time left if the deadline was 5 centuries. These decades would pass by in a snap. Therefore, one could imagine how shocking the news was. The age of the gods would come. Who would terminate Donghuang the Great's rule over the divine prefecture? For a moment, The vast space fell into dead silence. No one spoke a word, as though all of them had been stunned. Then, Buddha of Destiny continued, "Of course, this was only what I saw in the past. Even though omniscient is profound, it is not 100% accurate. The fate of a person can be changed. It is the same for destiny. Perhaps, the destiny of your highness has changed after you became a great emperor. Your fate of the emperor might have been prolonged. What I envisioned in the past might have changed. If everything in the world is destined, I will go with the flow," Donghuang the Great said calmly. As he said this, he cast a glance at Yi Futian. Quite a number of people, especially the few great emperors, caught him doing so. That proud son of heaven was the descendant of Emperor Yi Qing. He was already on his way to becoming a great emperor. Could he achieve his target in the remaining few decades? Would he then end the reign of Donghuang the Great? This seemed rather impossible. No matter how heaven-defying Yi Futian's talents were, for him to become a great emperor in decades was far-fetched. Furthermore, even if he successfully became a great emperor, exactly how would he end Donghuang the Great's rule over the divine prefecture? Donghuang the Great had been a great emperor for centuries. He had extraordinary talents. Even if Yi Futian caught up in terms of status, he would most likely still not be a match for the former. After catching Donghuang the Great glancing at Yi Futian, the other great emperors also looked in the direction where Yi Futian stood. Would he become a threat to Donghuang the Great? Human ancestor spoke up. "Donghuang, you don't have to care too much about this. I never believed in destiny. Besides that, as Buddha of Destiny said, you have proven your way at the emperor plane for more than 4 centuries now. Your fate of the emperor is not something that can be shaken so easily. You should not be troubled by this prophecy that is based on something illusory." Responded Donghuang the Great as he nodded his head. "I will not be affected by this. If such a day does come where the end of my fate of the emperor heralds the dawn of the next age of the gods, I am willing to play my part." He added, "However, Buddha Lord, I am still grateful for your reminder." Amitabha, recited Buddha of Destiny. He then said, "I thank you, great emperors, for granting my wish and avoiding this catastrophe. This can be considered a contribution of mine. Farewell." "Wait," a voice called out right then, interrupting Buddha of Destiny. The Devil Emperor had spoken, saying, "Since you read that Donghuang had the fate of the emperor back then, how many people possess the fate of the emperor here today?" Buddha of Destiny lowered his head and replied, "There will be consequences if I reveal too much of the secrets of the future. I dare not speak so as not to disturb fate." "Devil Emperor, please leave it as it is," implored Donghuang the Great. "If there truly is fate and reincarnation, by right, a few people here today should be in hell," mocked the Devil Emperor. "Amitabha," uttered Buddha of Destiny as he bowed. The light of Buddha shone, and his figure disappeared as he left this place. Although Buddha of Destiny had left, the rest of the crowd was still in awe at his prophecy. Only around 40 years of Donghuang the Great's 5 centuries of fate of the emperor remained. Would the next age of the gods begin in the coming 40 or more years? What sort of prosperous era would the future bring if that was the case? "I am looking forward to this. I hope that his prophecy will come true," said the Devil Emperor with a smile. "We are leaving." After he said this, Yang Yi, Yu Sheng, and the Devil World's other cultivators began to leave. The demonic cultivators in the ruins continent also gradually left and ceased fighting. "Oh, by the way, Donghuang, do not forget your promise from before to not touch Yi Futian. The Ziwei segmentum that he represents is now a superpower in the world. I hope that the great emperors here will not stoop so low as to take action yourselves. Otherwise, don't blame me for finding fault with you," the Devil Emperor threatened before he left. Then, the demonic cloud churned and roared as his will disappeared from the space. Before he left, he warned the great emperors from acting against Yi Futian. "I second his notion. The great emperors should not interfere in the battles here. If anyone breaks this agreement, please pardon us for not showing your forces mercy," Dark Sovereign threatened. There were 2 great emperors siding with Yi Futian. Their statements seemed to have decided Yi Futian's stance. He would be on the same side as the Devil World and the Dark World. They stood opposing the divine prefecture, the human realm, and the world of Buddhism. The wills of the 6 great emperors disappeared one by one. The sky returned to normal. The war stirred up in Ruin's continent was quelled by Buddha of Destiny. A calamity had been avoided. However, the conversation among the great emperors and Buddha of Destiny had a profound impact on everyone present. Chapter 2775 Reminder. Donghuang the Great had the fate of the emperor for a mere 500 years. What would happen 40 years later? Who would be the first to cross the path of the emperors? Many cultivators remained there after the emperors left. Futian began to contemplate the words he heard earlier. Donghuang the Great turned to stare at him with a complicated expression after hearing Buddha of Destiny's prophecy. Still, Futian could not see through Donghuang the Great's mind. Would the latter decide to eliminate the last one day? Besides, he understood why Devil Emperor and Dark Sovereign threatened Donghuang the Great by saying they would protect him. After all, he was the nemesis of Donghuang the Great. So, it was only natural that they would aid the rise of someone who could threaten the reign of Donghuang the Great. Even though he still hadn't reached the highest tier of cultivation, Buddha of Destiny's prophecy might very well be fulfilled in him. Nevertheless, taking his life was not an easy task if the great emperors did not involve in it personally. With the threatening presence of Devil Emperor and Dark Sovereign, Donghuang the Great and human ancestor could not dispose of him in person, even if they wanted to do so. Futian remained on the same spot. Likewise, Donghuang Diyuan did not leave that place as well. While she was staring at him, the cultivators of Divine Prefecture's Donghuang Imperial Palace were doing the same also, including Li Daoshou, Fang Ayu, and the like. The onlookers could feel an intense killing intent through their eyes. Even before the prophecy of Buddha of Destiny, Futian had made himself the common enemy of Divine Prefecture when he injured Donghuang Diyuan. The absolute opposition between him and the Divine Prefecture only further worsened the situation. Furthermore, Buddha of Destiny's prophecy might be referring to Futian. With that in mind, they would want Futian dead. Should Donghuang the Great be generous enough not to finish him off, they would still help the former ease his burden by eradicating the source of the problem. Although the likelihood of Futian dethroning Donghuang the Great was virtually nil, they found it hard to believe that the former could threaten the god who they revered greatly. Futian, a lot of things have happened between you and Divine Prefecture, yet Donghuang Imperial Palace had never once actually tried to kill you, Donghuang Diyuan uttered coldly. Now that you've made your stand and chose the darkness, Divine Prefecture will not pull its punches anymore from this moment onward. Oh, wait a minute. Did you ever pull your punches before? Futian asked casually. Are you referring to the time in the restricted area? Upon hearing that, Donghuang Diyuan shot Futian a sharp glare and chided, from now on, Futian will be the common enemy of the Divine Prefecture. When opportunity presents itself, kill him without mercy. Her voice echoed throughout the atmosphere. The Donghuang Imperial Palace and Divine Prefecture cultivators were glaring at Futian with bloodshot eyes while exuding their killing intent. Simultaneously, a powerful ancient god clan cultivator, who stood far away, was staring at Futian without hiding their murderous aura. Futian had finally become the common enemy of Divine Prefecture. So, they wished to witness how he would survive in the years to come. Whether he could stay alive for the next 40 years or not was the question no one could answer. After speaking, Donghuang Diyuan led her people and left. Human Realms Di Hao and the others glanced at Futian for a while and went away with their subordinates. Benefactor Yi, your fate is tied to Buddhism. Please do not neglect your studies in Buddhist doctrine, Wutian Buddha Lord urged. I will surely heed your advice, Buddha Lord, Futian put his palms together and replied. The light of Buddha illuminated around his body, proving that he did not forget the teachings of Buddhism. However, Medicine Buddha Lord snorted and left in displeasure. At once, the Buddhist cultivators followed him and departed. The empty Divine Realm cultivators left after the alliance of Divine Prefecture bunch took their leave. Lord Shaman turned to look at Futian. He had schemed to deal with Futian previously, but he tried to eliminate Qingyao. Yet, he noticed that he might be wrong since Dark Sovereign's faith in Qingyao was more profound than his expectation. He had caused Yi Futian to stand at their side. With that, it was even more arduous for him to deal with Yi Futian. Even Dark Sovereign would not allow him to do so. "Let's go," he announced. Following that, he withdrew from the scene with the other cultivators. "Brother." Yi Qingyao glanced at Yi Futian, who nodded at her with a smile. Shortly after, she went away from that place as well. The cultivators from Devil World did the same, but Yu Sheng approached Yi Futian instead. What was the meaning of this? What was Buddha of Destiny trying to do? Yu Sheng remarked in an upset tone. That prophecy had put Yi Futian in a dire situation because the number of people who wished to kill him increased significantly. "Omniscient," Yi Futian stated as he looked into the distance. Buddha of Destiny was the only great Buddha who had successfully cultivated omniscient. Therefore, he could peep through destiny and see a glimpse of the future. Who could even read what was in his mind? Buddha of Destiny cultivated omniscient and karma. I believe he knew the karma of his action. Perhaps, he had come to reorient the cause and effect. A crisp voice could be heard beside Yi Futian. The voice's owner was Hua Qingqing. She was the wick of Buddha Lord. Hence, she might be the one who could best understand the thought of Buddhist monks. Is our destiny predestined? Or is man the master of their fate? Yi Futian asked a question that perhaps was meant for himself. Buddhists believed in destiny. Although Donghuang the Great had studied the Buddhist doctrine, did he believe in karma and destiny? Human ancestors, on the other hand, did not believe in those. As the oldest great emperor, he had always thought that man was the master of their fate. Devil Emperor and Dark Sovereign were dubious toward those things. Perhaps they only believed the parts that were convenient to them. Everything we have experienced determines the fate of the future. And the course of the future is the result of our past. That is what karma is in Buddhism in a nutshell, Hua Qingqing explained in a soft voice, causing Yi Futian to ponder at her words. Buddhist doctrine is profound and mysterious. Even now, it is still hard to understand its true meaning, Yi Futian sighed. A while later, he added, "Let's go." "Okay." The crowd nodded and went back to where they came from. Yi Futian led his group back to Yi Imperial Palace after that. The war in Ruins continent had finally subsided. All the cultivators returned to their habitations. Although a temporary truce was called due to the appearance of Buddha of Destiny, there was no telling when the next conflict would break out again in the future. The War of the Six Realms was a growing trend. The existence of Ruins continent had accelerated its development. Qi Shengang asked for Yi Futian the next day after the latter's return to Yi Imperial Palace. Without delay, Yi Futian went to the dwelling of Qi Shengang. At that time, the latter was playing chess with his first disciple, Yang Yuan, while Feishuo was watching their game. "Teacher, brother," Yi Futian greeted. The moment Yang Yuan saw Yi Futian, he immediately got up to empty the seat for the latter. But, Yi Futian walked to the sidelines and said, "Brother, please have a seat. I will stay here and watch." Yang Yuan nodded and remained taciturn. Then he continued to play chess with Qi Shengang. "Futian, do you still remember the time when I was still the imperial advisor of Dali while you were in Daxia?" Qi Shengang asked. "It's still fresh in my memory." Yi Futian nodded. "A century has passed in the blink of an eye. Time really flies." "I could barely remember the past events," Qi Shengang uttered with a broad smile. "I've learned many things from you back then. Those moments will be etched on my memory forever. I swear I'll never forget them," Yi Futian promised as he showed a smile on his face. It might not be a happy moment of his life, but it was still nostalgic in retrospect. Although he went undercover to Dali, Qi Shengang, the imperial advisor, still accepted him as a disciple. Even after his cover was blown, Dali's imperial advisor had ordered Yang Yuan to send him back to Daxia personally. Qi Shengang nodded. "Do you still remember the principle that I had upheld back in Dali?" Yi Futian bowed his head and set his eyes on Qi Shengang with a smile. "I know what you are trying to tell me, teacher." "That's good. I'm not worried about you. The world out there is a complicated place. Sometimes, you might lose sight of yourself," Qi Shengang remarked. Chapter 2776 Chat. Yi Futian understood what Qi Shengang was trying to imply. After all, he had been walking a different path due to his conflict with Divine Prefecture and Donghuang the Great. He seemed to have become the ally of Dark World and Devil World currently. Devil World and Dark World emerged themselves in the world as destroyers. They invaded Divine Prefecture to stir up the war of the Six Realms. Although each of them had their reasons, it was an undisputed truth. Teacher, what is your opinion about the Six Realms and the Six Great Emperors? Yi Futian asked. Since they talked about this topic, he became interested in knowing Qi Shuangang's thoughts on this subject. Although his cultivation level was way higher than his master's, his foresight might not be as good as his teacher's. There is no right and wrong about someone's standpoint. However, the result of it is a whole new ball game altogether, Qi Shengang explained. Devil World and Dark World may have their standing on this subject. Devil Emperor and Dark Sovereign have the things they want and need to do. After all, everyone has their responsibility to bear. They have their decisions to make and things to consider. However, Devil World's invasion in Divine Prefecture did start a war. On the other hand, Dark World's conduct is worse than the former. I believe you still remember its attack in 3,000 realms of the Great Path. I got it. Yi Futian nodded. I've never once thought that I belong to their side. Hence, I stirred a conflict up with Dark World a while ago. His teacher must have worried that he would stand by their side and play a part in perpetuating their evil deeds. The forces of Divine Prefecture are to be called out as well. The six ancient god clans, with Divine Prefecture as their head, had invaded Ziwei Segmentum countless times. Besides, several Buddhist forces were not playing nice with you as well. Their deeds could never be erased completely. I did not know about your conflict with Donghuang the Great. So, I will not ask you to return good for evil. You will repay a favor with kindness, you will get even with someone for the harm caused to you. One should always segregate gratitude and resentment well. Yet, it would help if you never lost your moral compass. Don't ever lose sight of yourself. As for the six great emperors, I know a thing or two about them. I cultivated in the land under the governance of Divine Prefecture before, so I've heard things about Donghuang Diyuan. I am not sure what happened between Emperor Yi Qing and him in the past. So, I will refrain from further comments. After he ended the upheaval in Divine Prefecture, he wanted to see martial art and cultivation thrive and hoped for the cultivators to assess better cultivation methods. I believe that part is true, Qi Shengang continued. Everyone has a different personality. There is almost no one with absolute good or evil personality. Observing someone from a different perspective will lead you to a different conclusion. Of course, these are all the things that I see and understand. The remaining great emperors are legends. Speaking of which, how many of them have you met before? What do you think of them? Devil Emperor reigns in Devil Abyss. He is a pure demonic cultivator. He has a strong obsession with breaking the shackle of imprisonment by heavenly path in Devil World. He wanted to free their bondage and lead Devil World out of Devil Abyss, Yi Futian said. Dark Sovereign might have a dark past. Thus, he became pessimistic like he is now. He, too, has a powerful fixation. He thinks that the world is full of hypocrites and darkness. So it needs to be reformed. He believes that true light can only exist from absolute darkness. I don't know much about the other three great emperors, Yi Futian clarified. After all, he did not come in contact much with Lord of all Buddhas, human ancestor, and evil emperor. Okay. Qi Shengang bowed his head. Those who have reached the pinnacle in cultivation must have extremely firm convictions in their hearts. Their beliefs are so strong that it is unshakable. They believe that their ideology is the only truth. So do Devil Emperor and Dark Sovereign. Should that be the case, Donghuang the Great, the Buddha, human ancestor, evil emperor, too, have their beliefs that cannot be shaken. Yeah. Yi Futian nodded in agreement. What was Donghuang the Great's belief and conviction? What about human ancestor? During the conflict, human ancestor declared that he did not believe in destiny. Since he was named human ancestor, he must have believed in himself only. So, what about the Buddha and evil emperor? Futian, have you ever pondered about your belief? What kind of person do you want to be when you become a great emperor? Qi Shengang asked. Me? Yi Futian murmured. He had thought about that in the Dark Court because he overcame the dark memories that Dark Sovereign implanted into his mind. The man knew he could pull it off only because of his experience. Although he had many dark encounters in the past, he had met several people who changed the course of his life. Among them, Hua Fengliu, Mr. Du, Sage Dozhan, and Qi Shengang were the ones who had impacted him the most. What kind of person do you wish to see me become, teacher? Yi Futian asked with a light smile. With your aptitude, you will surely gain enlightenment to walk the path of the great emperor. I wish that you will not only be admired and feared by the people but also be revered by them and become their faith that will impact many generations to come, Qi Shengang answered. Teacher, you expect a lot from me, Yi Futian remarked while curling the corners of his lips up. If you are just an average Joe, I will only wish that you will be yourself. But you are different. You can rise to the top and stand above all. When that happens, your will affect many people, even the world order. Hence, I ask a lot from you, Qi Shengang responded. Devil Emperor, Dark Sovereign, and Donghuang the Great influenced the realms under their reigns with their wills. Dark Sovereign believed in absolute darkness. Hence, Dark World was born. When one stood on the summit, their mindsets and beliefs would influence more than just themselves. Well, this is my selfish desire, in a way, Qi Shengang uttered, flashing a smile. No. Yi Futian shook his head. You will always be my teacher and my pride. Yi Futian would never forget the extraordinary imperial advisor of Dali and the saying that went, as the heavens' movement is ever vigorous, so must a wise man ceaselessly strive. Likewise, Qi Shengang stated while glancing at Yi Futian in contentment. The teacher and disciple duo were equally proud of each other. Guess I will take my leave now, Yi Futian announced while Qi Shengang nodded. Brother, Feishue, you should stay with our teacher. After speaking, Yi Futian went away. Yang Yuan, Feishue, and Qi Shengang were all smiles as they looked at his silhouette. Although he did not answer yet, it was not all that important. The three of them had faith in him. After that, Qi Shengang and Yang Yuan went on with their chess game. The former moved one of his chess pieces strenuously. Will Futian reach that tier within 40 years? Yang Yuan uttered, even if he successfully dislodged Donghuang the Great, I believe he would not write off all the things the latter did for divine prefecture. Yeah. Qi Shengang nodded. He can differentiate past kindness from old scores, a contribution from a blunder. Chapter 2777 The Crisis of Political Marriage. There was temporary peace in the world after the War of the Six Realms. Although cultivators across the known realms would stir up conflicts from time to time, they did not cause any chaos. After all, they were just a bunch of disunited rabbles without emperor-level forces turning the tide of war. Yi Futian did not drown himself in cultivation during that time. Instead, he invited cultivators from Ziwei Segmentum and 9 supreme regions to Ruin's continent by repeatedly opening the portal between realms and leading them to the destination. In doing so, more cultivators had the chance to enter the Ruins continent for their cultivation. Even though they were not powerful enough to fight for the cultivation resources with other stronger individuals, the concentration level of spiritual qi on the land was incomparable with the other realms. As the spiritual qi in God's continent increased and expanded unceasingly, it eventually covered every known region in Original Realm. Even the cultivators in 3,000 realms of the Great Path had already noticed the changes in this part of the world. No one knew what would happen at the end of the line. They were unsure if that change had anything to do with the prophecy of Buddha of Destiny. That day, Fangari brought a piece of big news to the people in Yi Imperial Palace. Gossips about the information had already been spread even before the War of the Six Realms. The human realm's representative, Di Hao, proposed to the princess of Donghuang Imperial Palace, Donghuang Diyuan. The former wanted a political marriage between the human realm and the divine prefecture. Words spread like wildfire among the cultivators in Ruin's continent and caused an uproar. All the six realms were shaken to their very core. Rumor had it that all the imperial palaces had set their eyes on this topic, including several great emperors. According to some scoops, the said great emperors had already made their way to Donghuang Imperial Palace in the Divine Prefecture to see the outcome of the political marriage. If that political marriage came to pass, it would bring about a new era. Yi Futian was surprised after hearing the news. All the key figures in Yi Imperial Palace gathered for a meeting right after knowing about it. They were all focused on it, although it was somewhat unrelated to some of them. After all, the impact of the story was too significant. Yi Futian looked at the ground below from the sky stairwell of Yi Imperial Palace. Many people could be seen rushing in his direction. Immediately, he knew words had already gotten out. "I presume all of you have heard about it?" Yi Futian asked. "That's right." Everyone nodded in unison. "What do you think about this?" Yi Futian questioned. They had a conflict with the cultivators from the human realm and the divine prefecture previously. Should the political marriage occur, it would not be a good thing for Yi Futian and Yi Imperial Palace. The entire cultivation world was taken aback by the prophecy of Buddha of destiny a while ago. Donghuang the Great's fate of the emperor is only 500 years. If that turns out to be true, he did not have much time left. Human realm's marriage proposal is a sensitive topic at this time of day. Human ancestor is sending a message saying that he is willing to work hand in hand with Donghuang the Great to face uncertainty, Emperor Nan remarked. "Yeah." Lord Taishian nodded. If Donghuang the Great is wary of the prophecy, forming an alliance with human realm through political marriage does more good than harm. Even if something were to happen to him, Donghuang Diyuan would still have a place to belong. Human realm picks the perfect timing. The 6 realms were divided into 2 sides previously, each formed their alliance. Yet, a union as such could not hold a candle to one created through political marriage. Human ancestor was sending a message through this. "Do you think Donghuang the Great will agree to this proposal?" Yi Futian queried. Everyone had a stern expression immediately after hearing that. However, they were not the only people who were pondering this question. At that point, every cultivator in Ruin's continent, including the elites in the 6 realms, was doing the same. Everyone was waiting for the answer. Countless cultivators in Ruin's continent talked about this topic after hearing this news while waiting for the latest update from Divine Prefecture. No matter what the answer might be, it would undoubtedly cause yet another tumult. It did not matter if Donghuang the Great agreed to the proposal or not. Either way, it would still change the course of the 6 realms' future. If Donghuang the Great agreed, their alliance would become stronger. But if he declined, their coalition would fall apart. Many cultivators were gathered under the gateway from Divine Prefecture to Ruin's continent. They were all waiting to hear the answer. Once the people in Divine Prefecture got the word, they would bring the news to Ruin's continent first. All the cultivators engaged in battles declared a ceasefire after getting to know about this. Through this alone, one could imagine how huge the impact of the news was. After hearing Yi Futian's question, Emperor Nan replied, "I think Donghuang the Great will turn it down." Emperor Nan had always revered Donghuang the Great. Apart from the clash of the twin great emperors, the latter did not have any shortcomings. Although the former was considered the enemy of Divine Prefecture after following Yi Futian, he still thought Donghuang the Great would decline the proposal. "I seconded that," Lord Taishian stated. "He will decline," a voice said. It was the former palace lord of West Imperial Palace of Divine Prefecture's ancient god clan. Human ancestor plans to restrain Donghuang the Great through this proposal. "I tell you, it's impossible. Donghuang the Great will reject him," he added. The tone of his voice was brimmed with confidence. After all, as the helmsman of ancient god clan, he understood Donghuang the Great pretty well. Many people voiced their opinions. Yet, all of them thought that Donghuang the Great would decline. Yi Futian was taken by surprise upon hearing that. It seemed like Donghuang the Great had impacted many people with his incredible charisma. "Let's go out and wait for the news," Yi Futian uttered. After that, he led his people out of Yi Imperial Palace all the way to Outer Realms to wait for the result from the Divine Prefecture. The people over there might have gotten the news, but it would take some time for word to reach here. After some time, a clamor was heard from afar while a silhouette could be seen rushing toward them. Meanwhile, Someone was heard yelling, "He rejected." A hint of astonishment flashed across Yi Futian's eyes. The result was exactly like what the others predicted. Dong Huang the Great really declined Human Realm's political marriage proposal. Although they had seen it coming, the news was rather impactful with all. Dong Huang the Great only gave a short answer. The people from Human Realm were not invited into the gate of the Imperial Palace. Someone could be heard shouting. Dong Huang the Great said the exact words from afar. It's inappropriate to adopt human ancestors' disciple into Dong Huang Imperial Palace. Please forgive us for not inviting you in. Even though everyone had predicted the outcome, their hearts skipped a beat upon hearing the answer. However, it was not just the people here. Every cultivator in Ruin's continent felt the same after knowing Dong Huang the Great's answer. Dong Huang the Great presumed the other party would be adopted into his family before asking them for details. Heck, he did not even allow the Human Realm's cultivators to enter his imperial palace. A proposal for political marriage? Dong Huang the Great's attitude toward this was telling the Human Realm cultivators that they were unworthy. Yi Futian was confounded. He had never thought that Dong Huang the Great would give such an insult answer and did not even try to be courteous at all. It was as if the latter was telling the other party to return to where they had crawled out from. It seemed like Dark Sovereign was right all along. The relationship between the Human Realm and the Divine Prefecture was not as good as everyone had imagined. Chapter 2778 The Path of the Emperors. The people in Divine Prefecture applauded with praise. Human Ancestor wanted Di how to marry Dong Huang Diyuan. Dong Huang the Great presumed that the second mentioned was to become a live-in son-in-law. But even so, he was not worthy. Inside Dark Court, a silhouette could be seen staring into the distance. Rumors circulated around the outer realms that the great emperors had gone to Dong Huang Imperial Palace. But the truth was, they did not. However, they were following the news as well. After hearing Dong Huang the Great's reply, Dark Sovereign commented with a smile, "Dong Huang has got a spine." Human Ancestor's proposal at such a sensitive period was more than just the mere appearance. He must have wished to test the waters. Nevertheless, Dong Huang the Great was being uncourteous with his reply. With that, the rift between the two forces would increase significantly. He was interested to see how everything would play out. The remaining great emperors had their thoughts about this after receiving the news. Suddenly, the situation in the six realms had become precarious and unpredictable. How strong would the so-called alliance be? Yi Futian and the others discussed this topic outside Yi Imperial Palace at that time. Supreme Swordlord said, "Even though we knew that Dong Huang the Great would reject the proposal, we had never expected him to answer in such an insulting manner. It looks like he offended Human Ancestor. I had asked about your opinions earlier. All of you thought that Dong Huang the Great would decline. Human Ancestor is not a fool. If the outcome is one that we can predict, why would he still send his people to propose marriage? I believe the real reason behind this action is more than what meets the eye." Yi Futian frowned and continued, "Why did Human Ancestor do that? For one, we cannot rule out the fact that Human Ancestor might have wanted to see Dong Huang the Great's reaction by proposing marriage or testing the water." Supreme Swordlord went on, "Why would Human Ancestor test Dong Huang the Great though? Well, it'd only make sense if they were not on good terms since day one. They did it despite knowing the other party hated their guts," Yi Futian stated. "This might have something to do with the death of Emperor Yi Qing," Supreme Swordlord added. There were many versions of stories about Emperor Yi Qing's death back then. The clash of the twin great emperors was started by Dong Huang the Great, who coveted power, authority, and the throne. So, he murdered the former and even went as far as to wipe off many of his subordinates. It was a massacre. This is why he had always been a subject of condemnation. No one in Divine Prefecture dared to mention that genocide. It eventually became taboo. 400 years had passed since then. In retrospect, Dong Huang might have felt the pressure that came from Outer Realm at that time. If that were the case, Human Ancestor might have wanted Emperor Yi Qing to die all along, Yi Futian murmured as he recounted something the Dark Sovereign had mentioned before. It was logical if this turned out to be true. Human ancestor was standing on the same side as Dark Sovereign back then. Only one of the twin Great Emperor could remain. Hence, the merciless mass murder happened. Nonetheless, Donghuang the Great had always carried the guilt with him all the time. Therefore, he did not kill Yi Futian but spared the latter all this while. Things made more sense if that were the case. However, there was still one thing that Yi Futian could not understand about Donghuang the Great. During the former's conversation with his teacher, Qi Shengang, the latter mentioned that people of Donghuang the Great's caliber would always have a firm and unshakable belief. Individuals like Devil Emperor and Dark Sovereign did not hide their thoughts and beliefs. It was pretty apparent. What about Donghuang the Great? To understand Donghuang the Great, he would need to know what was the belief and goal of the former. In all likelihood, Donghuang the Great's disciples might not even know about it. We don't know how this will affect the 6 realms. However, it has nothing to do with us as of now. We should go back, Yi Futian announced. He took this news very seriously. Or else he would not have come out. Although it had nothing to do with them currently, he thought that this seemingly insignificant matter would affect the entire 6 realms' future. If human ancestors' purpose was to test Donghuang the Great's attitude, what would the former do after knowing the result? It was a question that no one had to answer to at that time. With that, all of them returned to Yi Imperial Palace and put the matter at the back of their minds. After all, it did not affect them much. The most important thing to them was to focus on their cultivation. A month later, Old Ma rushed in to report that someone wished to see Yi Futian as he cultivated inside Yi Imperial Palace. Standing on the ladder outside the Great Hall of the Imperial Palace, Yi Futian looked forward and saw a silhouette who did not use the ladder but came flying in the air. Most of the cultivators in Yi Imperial Palace were upset with that figure. However, that person exuded a powerful aura where divine light circled their body. They must be a top-tier cultivator. A while later, a slender figure in green stood before Yi Futian, shooting him a sharp and condescending look. The former put an arrogant air around him and did not respect the latter. After scrutinizing that person, Yi Futian was sure that he had seen this uninvited visitor before. After Di Hao was injured during that war, several powerful cultivators of the human realm came from heaven beyond heaven to God's ruins continent. Those individuals were ancient beings with some of the highest cultivation levels. This visitor was one of them. A cultivator from human realm came to Yi Imperial Palace. Was that the aftermath brought by the marriage proposal? Yi Futian remained taciturn and stared at the visitor calmly. Then he emanated an unseen aura while divine light covered his body. After all, it was insolent to behave like that on the grounds of Yi Imperial Palace. After their powerful auras clashed, Yi Futian noticed that the other party had become one entity with heaven and earth. The pressure he exuded was so intimidating that it was comparable to Di Hao's. A turquoise divine light circulated around Yi Futian's body as he took a step forward. Immediately, the whole atmosphere quivered while an authority of heaven came pressing down from the sky. He piped up, "If you are here to look for trouble, I will not hesitate to take you down." After speaking, a stinging aura unleashed. The visitor immediately raised his head to stare and said, "A divine matrix." After that, he set his eyes on Yi Futian and carried on, "Not bad. However, if you wished to defeat Donghuang the Great and get your revenge, it would be empty talk without becoming a great emperor yourself." Yi Futian did not reply but glanced at him quietly. "A path of the emperors has been opened now. If you are willing, you may take this path of the emperors," the visitor remarked. "What path of the emperors?" Yi Futian asked. What was human realm playing at? "You are talented. Perhaps you have the aptitude to become a great emperor. But without an opportunity to walk on the path of the emperors, you shall never hope to reach that tier. Now, there's a chance before your very eyes. Whether to grab it or not all depends on your choice," the visitor went on. "Yi Futian, will you follow me back to human realm and be a disciple of human ancestor?" Heh! Yi Futian's pupils shrunk when he heard that. The expressions of Yi Imperial Palace's cultivators turned grim as they glared at the man who hovered before the ladder. This man wanted Yi Futian to go to human realm and be a disciple of human ancestor. Things went just as they had expected. The repercussions following the marriage proposal had begun to take place. The human realm had already started to plot against the divine prefecture. Chapter 2779 Formless Pressure. The human realm had found him, claiming there was a path of the emperors that wanted him to join the human ancestor. Clearly, they wanted to help him against Donghuang the Great. Be furious smiley be. The marriage proposal had caused the fissures between the two great emperor-level forces to expand. Perhaps, the human ancestor and Donghuang the Great were clearer about their relationship. I give my thanks to the human ancestor for his appreciation. However, I have my own path and will not cultivate under the human realm, Futian replied calmly. He rejected the other directly. How could he go to the human realm? The present situation was so complicated. The best solution for him was to act by staying still. He was already trying to survive among the cracks and find a path of the emperors. If he took one wrong step, everything would fail. Your own path. After hearing Futian's words, the other showed some scorn, seeming to find it laughable. He said to Futian, the heavenly path collapsed after the ancient age of gods ended. Why are there only a few great emperors? Are you really naive enough to think that you can find the path of the emperors by yourself? The heavenly path collapsed, and the path of the emperors was severed. All of those who became emperors had found special opportunities. This is also why the discovery of the God's Ruins continent represents the start of a new age. Countless possibilities have appeared, but from what we see now, the path of the emperors is still severed. Now, the human ancestor can help you find a path of the emperors. You must think carefully. The other spoke calmly with an arrogant tone, giving Futian a huge chance. If you miss this, you will not have another chance, he said. Why would the human ancestor help him find a path of the emperors? Futian's heart quivered at these words. Of course, it wasn't because he was tempted. Instead, it was because why would the human ancestor be able to help him find a path of the emperors? Did this mean that the human ancestor himself controlled some special opportunities? I would still like to try. The path of the emperors is cut off, but there are still 6 emperors in the world. Why can't I? Futian replied. The other took a deep look at Futian with some hints of mockery. He was an ancient figure and had cultivated for countless years. Up to now, he had seen too many extraordinary figures. No one knew how many shining and talented figures had existed in the previous chaotic era, but what were their ends like? The best were cultivating in isolation like them and finding their own path. But the longer you lived, the higher your cultivation, the more clearly you understood that the path of the emperors had been cut off. As Futian was very young. In this era, he belonged to an extraordinary group and was naturally very confident. After his cultivation reached the peak and some more years passed, he would understand. He looked at Futian with a mocking gaze and said, "One day, you'll understand what you missed." With that, he turned and started walking, leaving this place, and quickly disappeared from everyone's line of sight. Futian looked at the leaving backside and furrowed his brows slightly. Many cultivators of the Yi Imperial Palace came over here. They all looked at the figure disappearing into the distance. That man is so crazily proud, someone murmured. He must be a strong elder. He seems young, but is definitely an ancient and supreme figure who had cultivated in the human realm until coming out in this day and age, the Supreme Swordlord said. The human ancestor sent these people out of the mountains and had tried earlier to test Donghuang, the Great's attitude with the marriage alliance. What exactly is he planning? What goal did the human ancestor have? He vaguely felt that there was a deeper meaning to what the human ancestor's actions, but they didn't know yet. Plus, since the human ancestor could send people to find me, then he might be looking for other top figures in the divine prefecture, Futian said. The human realm might be trying to overthrow the divine prefecture. That is indeed possible. The Supreme Swordlord nodded. Especially if he uses the path of the emperors as bait, how many top figures would be able to resist the temptation? The Donghuang Imperial Palace doesn't control the forces of the divine prefecture directly. Other than the forces they dominate directly, and the manners of the 18 domains, all the forces and cultivators are free, like how I'm here today. Also, since the human ancestor is an ancient great emperor, he must know even more. He has a rich heritage, and this in itself is very tempting to many top figures. Many strong cultivators might be persuaded to leave the divine prefecture. If a conflict erupts between the human realm and divine prefecture, then won't the dark world, devil realm, and other forces be there to reap the benefits? Futian asked in a low voice. Why was the human ancestor doing this? And why would Donghuang the Great act so domineering during the marriage alliance? He could say many things to reject the human realm, but he chose the most direct way. He did not hide his unhappiness at all and humiliated the one who'd come to propose. You had to look at a dog's master before hitting it. The one Donghuang the Great humiliated was the human ancestor in the back. His direct disciple Di How had come to propose marriage. He wasn't even qualified to enter the Donghuang imperial palace as an in-law. Don't know how Donghuang the Great will deal with this, the supreme sword lord said. If Donghuang the Great and the human ancestor turn on each other, then the Dark Court, Devil Realm, and other forces will take advantage of this. It goes without saying. At that time, the divine prefecture might be surrounded by enemies. The Dark World and Devil Realm won't mind taking the divine prefecture first. Thus, I don't understand Donghuang the Great's intent. Perhaps he has his own plan. Futian nodded. The current situation was becoming harder to understand. How will the 6 realms be in the future? As for the Donghuang the Great's 500-year fate of the emperor, would he be the one to end it in 40 years? Or would it be the human ancestors group? If this situation continued worsening, it was indeed possible. After a pause, Futian took a deep breath and said, "We're getting more and more pressed for time. I vaguely feel that there will be another huge change in the world. We must hurry and cultivate. The path of the emperors. How could he step into the great emperor plane sooner? He could only enter the emperor plane to truly contend with the 6 realms. Right now, he was only a chess piece." The 6 emperors did not truly respect him. Everyone nodded, showing that they agreed with Futian's words. They also had this feeling. Dark currents were flowing through the 6 realms right now, and an intense storm could occur at any time. Let's all go cultivate. Those who have gone past the second divine tribulation of the great path must enter the near-deity plane as soon as possible, while those who have gone through the first divine tribulation should go through the second as soon as possible, Futian said. He set down the other thoughts for now. For them right now, they could only remain unchanging to respond to the changes. Only cultivation could improve the Yi Imperial Palace's level. Yes, Palace Lord. All the strong cultivators bowed and left this place, heading to cultivate. Futian looked into the distance and took a deep breath. He felt a formless pressure, the pressure from the outer realms. With the current situation, any carelessness could be fatal. As a chess piece, he may be abandoned at any time too. Futian was not arrogant enough to think that his relationship with the Devil Emperor and Dark Sovereign was very stable. Chapter 2780 The Killing Arrives. It was year 10,150 of the Divine Prefecture calendar. The God's Ruins continent had gone through the accumulation of time. After cycling through chaos to peace countless times, many extraordinary figures had appeared. The population of the place was great too. Cultivators from all the worlds had come here, taking root and growing stronger. More and more forces were established here. In terms of the overall level, this God's Ruins continent was stronger than any realm of the 7 realms. Of course, this continent itself got its power from the forces of the original realm that had moved from the 7 realms. There was also an interesting phenomenon in recent years. The cultivators from the original realm mostly gathered in the territory covered by the Yi Imperial Palace. They were stationed there, as if seeing the Yi Imperial Palace as the center, agreeing by default that the Yi Imperial Palace represented the forces of the original realm. Of course, most of them had come to the Ruins continent to cultivate through the space passage created by the Yi Imperial Palace. So they naturally felt closer to the Yi Imperial Palace and viewed it as a place they revered. In addition, the disciples that had originally studied at the Heavenly Mandate Academy had gradually matured and strengthened. They held great authority among the original realm cultivators in the outside world. It was even more so for the people who had come from the Ziwei Imperial Palace. As for the forces outside of the original realm, they were developing non-stop too. They crossed through their cultivation realm and the ruins world, improving their abilities while preserving relative peace. No large-scale conflicts had erupted in the past few years. However, there was still something that caused a commotion. It was the dark undercurrent of the Seven Realms. This event was still related to the marriage alliance from a few years back. After the human realm had been rejected and humiliated, their relationship with the divine prefecture worsened subtly too. Not too long after that event, the human realm invited the top figures of the Seven Realms to a sparring session in the human realm. There had been many guesses about this sparring session. The general public was not familiar with it, but according to rumors, the human realm wanted to win over the strongest figures of all the worlds. This naturally included the top figures of the divine prefecture. Apparently, many strong cultivators had gone, including famous people from the divine prefecture, who had gone secretly. As for what exactly happened there, no one knew. The Yi Imperial Palace did not participate. A strong cultivator of the human realm had gone personally to invite Yi Futian to cultivate in the human realm and learn from the human ancestor, but Yi Futian had rejected him. This meant that he had missed the chance to get close with the human realm. At this time, a mysterious yet strong aura covered the land within the Yi Imperial Palace. This vast Yi Imperial Palace was like a true emperor-level palace. It was extremely magnificent, and the formless weight that filled the sky above it was like the might of an emperor. Many top figures had gathered within the Yi Imperial Palace. Many strong figures had gone through the divine tribulation of the Great Path, especially since many people had had breakthroughs these past few years. After the previous storm, Yi Futian had ordered the strong cultivators of the Yi Imperial Palace cultivate in peace and improve themselves. The strong figures of the Yi Imperial Palace all followed Yi Futian's orders and worked hard on cultivating, trying their best to reach another level before the drastic changes occurred. This way, they could react to the changes. With such a cultivation environment, as well as pills, various divine techniques, and other cultivation resources, their abilities had improved quickly. Yi Futian sat in the cultivation court at the peak of the Yi Imperial Palace. Divine light circled him. With his body as the core, the green divine light enveloped the boundless world. It reached the sky along the divine wall, passed through the matrix, and extended and enveloped the vast Yi Imperial Palace. Right now, the entire Yi Imperial Palace was under the envelopment of his divine consciousness. Naturally, it was also covered by the domain of his will of the Great Way. It was like his small world. Under his divine consciousness, he could see all the cultivators. He could easily see the cultivation statuses of third brother Jiyu Dongliu, the supreme sword lord, Fang Kun, and Xia Qingyuan. They all knew this and did not care that Yi Futian was watching them. When they ran into problems with cultivating, they would communicate directly with Yi Futian like this. Fang Kun and the others especially would often speak up directly to ask about cultivation. Just then, a figure stood up in a cultivation spot of the Yi Imperial Palace and looked up at the sky. His figure was burlesque and filled with aggressive force. He actually called directly to the sky. There was a strong wave of qi in the atrium. It gathered into an illusory face. It was Yi Futian's face. What is wrong? A voice came out of that illusion. It was Yi Futian's figure, but his true self was still cultivating in isolation. This illusory figure was only formed by his consciousness. I just comprehended a shred of power of the dragon god from the dragon god's corpse. After combining it into my will of the fighting god, I can have a breakthrough. Do you want to try? Do Jiao said a bit excitedly. Yi Futian had once exchanged a dragon god's corpse with Xia Qingyuan. It was mainly to help the demon clan cultivate, especially the dragon clan. Do Jiao had comprehended a shred of the power of the dragon god too. Okay, the illusion in the sky answered. Do Jiao's figure instantly shot into the sky, his body transforming into a giant. Like a god of war, a frightening war rune with divine light appeared between his brows. Countless symbols of the word war floated in the sky, and an immense will of war burst forth. In an instant, The vast land was filled with an extremely chaotic aura. The combat power was shocking. In the Yi Imperial Palace, many people in the distance felt this strong will that shot into the clouds, and all looked over. They saw the aura of war shoot up, and a war godlike figure rose up, zooming murderously into the sky. It was Do Jiao. He had gone through the first divine tribulation of the Great Path countless years ago. Such a strong aura. The abilities of Do Jiao are getting scarier nowadays. I must cultivate hard too, someone whispered, their heart quivering nowadays. The abilities of the cultivators in the Yi Imperial Palace were getting more and more frightening. If they didn't work hard in cultivating, they would get left in the dust. Open! Do Jiao roared. He transformed into the war god, and his will of war continued to be pushed to the maximum. He rushed into the sky, and battle intent filled the air instantly. The war god was about to shatter the void. But just then, the illusory figure in the sky stamped his foot, making the world thunder. It stepped directly onto that war god's body, and the aggressive war god that had shot into the sky dropped down even faster. It had been stepped on and forced down directly. Boom! There was a huge boom, and some buildings collapsed. Many people's hearts clenched fiercely. They all mourned for the war god that had disappeared. So sad. He has gotten cocky, someone murmured before turning to start cultivating again. He has indeed gotten cocky, someone else said. Do Jiao could have dueled with anyone, so why did he have to go for Yi Futian? Wasn't he asking for it? Did he not know his level after going through the divine tribulation of the Great Path? Little Condor, you can duel with Do Jiao when you have time, Yi Futian's voice said in the void. Okay. Condor Sama had flown over from somewhere. He transformed into a giant bird and dove straight towards Do Jiao. Soon, there were some huge booms and pained cries. One could vaguely make out pleas of I'm sorry. Yi Futian saw all of this. He opened his eyes now and looked up into the sky. His plane was getting stronger and stronger, but he still had not had any tangible changes. The third divine tribulation still had not come. But in reality, his cultivation now was incomparable to how it had been. He could feel that he was much stronger. Would he reach the near-god plane? Yi Futian was even thinking about what kind of plane the near-god plane was. It was originally a plane of void. It was known as the path they must cross to become a great emperor and the ultimate door they would pass into. However, his cultivation was different from the others. He was still stuck at the pinnacle of the Renhuang plane at present. Even though he had gone through 2 divine tribulations, he still had not become a tribulation cultivator like the others. His tribulations were different from the others. This was why Yi Futian was thinking and even doubting a bit. Do Jiao is begging for mercy. Won't you let little Condor release him? Hua Jiyu said with a smile as she walked over. That guy deserves a beating. Little Condor can spark his bloodthirstiness and give him some motivation, Yi Futian said with a laugh. He trolled Do Jiao purposely for disturbing his cultivation. He indeed deserves it. You were frustrated about cultivation, and he disturbed you, Hua Jiyu said. However, you should not be too impatient. Cultivation has no instant success. Instead, it takes time. Once you comprehend enough of a plane, you will naturally break down the walls. It is just that your cultivation is special, so your walls are higher than the others, but your abilities are stronger too. BENB. Yes. Yi Futian nodded. Overthinking without comprehension is indeed meaningless. Do what you can to the best of your abilities, and what should come will come naturally at the right time, Hua Jiyu continued. I understand. Yi Futian nodded and continued to cultivate. He entered a state of complete focus. The moment he started cultivating, he put away all other thoughts and entered his world to see his true self clearly. Time passed unknowingly. Yi Futian was immersed in his own cultivation. That day, many people in the territory controlled by the Yi Imperial Palace looked up to the sky. There were strands of shocking aura in the void. They all looked up to the sky and then saw a group of strong cultivators descend from the sky. This group was clearly from different parties, but all the parties' auras were frightening to the max. Who are they? The hearts of the cultivators were all racing. These auras were exceedingly frightening, especially the few at the front. Like gods, their gazes swept across the ground with disdain, as if they were looking at ants. Those gazes made many cultivators feel extremely uncomfortable. In fact, some even sensed danger. Before they could react, a destructive bolt of golden lightning appeared in the sky. It traveled across the high sky, containing the incredible intent of destruction. Then one of the strong figures pointed downward with a finger. The destructive golden lightning instantly swept down murderously like it meant to destroy the world. The many people were shocked immediately, and they hurried towards the distance, wanting to escape. But that destructive golden lightning seemed to contain divine power. Every cultivator it hit was instantly turned to dust. They could not resist at all and died tragically under the golden lightning. The ground split apart, and terrifying cracks opened up. The golden lightning continued spreading into the distance as if the ground had broken apart. The cultivators in this vast space started fleeing madly. The destructive aura in the sky above their heads was still there, and they all felt a dangerous intent. These people had come with the intent of murder. Run! Notify Palace Lordji, someone yelled. They seemed to want to ask Palace Lordji for help, but as soon as he finished speaking, a golden bolt of lightning struck his body. His entire body disappeared under the golden lightning, and his soul was scattered. He did not even have a corpse left. The group of cultivators looked at the Yi Imperial Palace in the distance, and their eyes were filled with scorn, along with a murderous aura. Notify the Yi Imperial Palace? There was no hurry. They had come to destroy the Yi Imperial Palace. Everything would end today. The Yi Imperial Palace and Ziwei Segmentum would become history. This was not Yi Futian's era. He never had an era. He was only a talented junior who had fallen before he could fully rise up. So what if he was extremely talented? What could he change? They came today, representing the god of death. Boom! Countless huge palm prints fell from the sky. Nothing survived in their paths. Everyone was killed instantly under the attacks of the palm prints, and huge dents from the palms appeared on the ground. Everyone was fleeing wildly, but the moment that disaster came, they could only pray. The destructive blows kept raining down as if the Reaper had come to this land. Who is wreaking havoc here? Beautiful divine light of the great path flowed in from the distance. It was the cultivators of the Ziwei Imperial Palace hurrying over. They were the ones who had joined the Ziwei Imperial Palace before, and now, many of them had reached the pinnacle of the Renhuang Plain. Their hearts trembled after feeling the destructive intent too. These people were extremely frightening, but they must come to stop them. Of course, they had also notified the Yi Imperial Palace. As soon as they finished speaking, a destructive divine formation appeared in the sky. Then disparaging sword intent rained down, creating endless stabbing sounds. They did not even have the time to yell out in pain before dying tragically under the attacks. They could not even think of resistance. Right now, this place was like hell on earth. No one knew how many cultivators had died in an instant. This cruel and cold-blooded bloodshed had not happened on the Ruins continent in many years, but it had happened here today. BENB. Many people felt despair. They could not even flee, but the strong cultivators did not seem to care about their lives. The murder was only done off-handedly. They traveled directly across the sky. Everywhere they passed, countless people were turned to dust. Their goal was the Yi Imperial Palace. These top figures had come for the Yi Imperial Palace to destroy the Yi Imperial Palace. Chapter 2781. One step too slow. Everyone, retreat. A voice filled the atrium. No one could resist, so everyone began to do so. Clearly, the strong cultivators had realized that these people had come for blood, and they could not be stopped at all. This group of strong cultivators was frighteningly powerful. Anyone who wanted to stop them would be like trying to stop a mountain with a stick. They could not even take one hit, so they could only retreat. It would be enough if they could live on. At the same time as that voice, a divine sword appeared in the distance. It carried the supreme sword will and transformed into various boundless and huge swords, coming down at the strong cultivators who had come to kill. There were strings of thunderous noises. The huge swords contained supreme might. The Supreme Swordlord's figure appeared outside the Yi Imperial Palace, coming out with a group of strong cultivators. They all had very uncomfortable expressions. They stared at the incoming strong cultivators in the distance, advancing with destruction. They saw countless beams of golden divine light sweeping through the void. They transformed into a golden divine sword. The sword did not contain any sword intent. It was only indestructible divine power, but it had transformed into a sword to kill and then formed attacks. It was not a swordsman. But in that instant, all the divine swords were swept away and destroyed. The golden divine sword disintegrated the sword of the Supreme Swordlord, making the Supreme Swordlord's expression turn ugly. He stared at the group of advancing strong cultivators. They had become too strong. Emperor's might radiated subtly from their bodies, and divine power flowed around them. They were unstoppable as they tried to destroy the Yi Imperial Palace. The number of strong cultivators who had come out after the Supreme Swordlord also had very uncomfortable expressions. They all saw that the Supreme Swordlord could not stop them either. If this group attacked, they would probably not prevent them. Retreat. Go in. The Supreme Swordlord saw the cold stares shoot over across the sky and instantly made the decision. He ordered the retreat, making everyone return to the Yi Imperial Palace. Being outside was suicide. They were not the group's match and would only be massacred. This was meaningless death. The strong cultivators who had come out all followed the order to retreat and returned to the Yi Imperial Palace. Seeing them disappear, the cultivators in the distance did not mind either. Their eyes held some mockery as if staring at their prey. They had already reached this place, and those people still wanted to escape? They must all die. None of the strong cultivators of the Ziwei Imperial Palace should think of surviving. They would all be massacred, and the Ziwei Imperial Palace would be wiped out. The group of strong cultivators continued forward. In the sweep of an arm, who knew how many people lost their lives? They killed mindlessly, and everywhere they passed was turned to dust. It was as if people's lives were just like weeds to them and the cultivators were like ants. This also made everyone feel despair. When faced with absolute power, they were indeed like ants. They did not even have the qualifications to resist. They could only watch as the Reaper descended, and then they would disappear from the world. Plus, the Supreme Swordlord had come out and then retreated. Even they could not stop these people's bloodshed. The core figures of the Ziwei segmentum were gathered within the Yi Imperial Palace. Right now, the entire Yi Imperial Palace was shaken. The Supreme Swordlord's roar had woken all the cultivators with shock. Then they learned what had happened in the outside world. Strong enemies had come to invade the Yi Imperial Palace. Various figures shot into the sky. Strong auras of the Great Path radiated out, and their eyes were frigid. People had actually come to kill. No one had broken in since the Yi Imperial Palace had been constructed. This was the first time, but just this once put them against a huge catastrophe. Yi Futian was cultivating in isolation, but such a great matter naturally shocked him awake at once. A frightening will of the Great Path spread out in the sky above the Yi Imperial Palace. An illusory figure appeared in the sky. The Vaja region, Haotian clan, Jiang clan, and other ancient god clans of the Divine Prefecture have allied and attacked us, the Supreme Swordlord announced. His voice spread across the entire Yi Imperial Palace, resonating through this land. They have committed massacres in the outer realms and are almost here. In cultivation, Yi Futian opened his eyes. His figure flashed, and he appeared in the sky, combining with the illusory figure. His expression did not look good. The ancient god clans had always been a danger. After the great emperor intent of the ancient god clans was awoken, they became extremely threatening. They had always been trying to cultivate faster than the others and get rid of the other. Before this, the ancient god clans had kept a low cover and never attacked him. But today, they had attacked together and were committing so much bloodshed. Yi Futian understood that the other side seemed to be very confident. Then, it was very likely they had taken a critical step and had experienced a transformation. That was why they dared to attack the Yi Imperial Palace so crazily. What step had they cultivated to? Boom following a considerable boom, the group of strong cultivators burst into the Yi imperial palace. It was indeed the alliance of the few ancient god clans of the divine prefecture in the past. This allied force had wanted to destroy them more than once. They had attacked the Ziwei segmentum countless times before, but they all paid heavy prices. Tianyang City had especially been destroyed, the will of the Tianyang the Great had been wiped out, and the divine weapons had been taken. But the heritages of the other ancient god clans were still there, and they always hid their strongest trump card. They had fought before, but they had never been confident in destroying the other and had always been waiting. Now, they seemed one step faster than him and had come here to attack directly. A storm of the great path flowed in the atrium. Yi Futian's illusory figure seemed to appear in the sky. He stared at the incoming strong cultivators. The lord of the Vajra realm and countless other top cultivators also looked up into the sky. Their eyes were like divine eyes, containing extremely sharp intents, along with a hint of disdainful air. They were like high and mighty gods who did not care for anything here and were extremely scornful. Seeing those eyes, Yi Futian knew that these ancient figures probably had done what Tianyang the Great had done back then. They had controlled the physical bodies that they'd borrowed, step by step. Back then, Tianyang the Great had possessed Wang Xiao's body and finally became one with him. Wang Xiao had disappeared, and Tianyang the Great had been reborn. Now, the few rulers of the ancient god clans had probably become the shells of the great emperors. Yi Futian, the Vajra realm's lord, yelled. His eyes had turned golden and were extremely sharp. Divine power seemed to flow in his eyes, and he stared scornfully at Yi Futian's body. It seems that in the end, you are still a bit slow, he said. After today, this star figure who had risen from the original realm will be eradicated from the world. Slow. Yi Futian could feel that gust of divine power and could feel the strong confidence in the other's eyes. The great emperor had been revived and attacked the Yi imperial palace to take his life. Several other great emperors had come at the same time too. They thought highly of him. You all were great emperors before too. How can you massacre the innocent? Yi Futian asked coldly. They were great emperors but massacring wildly. How could people of the outer realms resist the killing of a former great emperor? They are nothing but ants. In that era, not even one of 10 cultivators could survive. This is nothing, they said coldly. They did not care for the people's lives at all. To them, the masses were like ants. Chapter 2782 Crisis. So, you'll even possess and devour your own juniors? Yi Futian's eyes were cold. These great emperors disrespected the masses. It is their honor to be able to combine with our consciousnesses, the Vajra realm lord said coldly. Supported by the divine power, his entire aura had changed drastically and was completely different from the original Vajra realm lord. It was like Wang Xiao after being possessed by Tianyang the Great. At this time, another figure appeared in the sky. It was Shi Kaiyao. She was also from an ancient god clan and had some similarities. She looked at the group in the lower sky and said coldly, "Since you all have stepped onto this path, as the Buddha of Destiny said, the age of gods will appear. You all will have the chance to recover your emperor position. You're no longer your original self, so why remain obsessed with the past rivalries?" They all gazed at Shi Kaiyao. They knew that Shi Kaiyao was a bit special too, like them. After all, they had all inherited the forces of the ancient god clans. If he is only an ordinary person, then he is an ant in my eyes. I would not lower myself to make this trip. You also said that I will recover my emperor position in the future. How can I leave such a threat here? They were a bit worried because of how extraordinary Yi Futian was. They worried that Yi Futian would enter the great emperor plane one day, becoming their threat. After all, it was incredibly difficult for them to come back to life. They had gone through a long passage of time for the change in the world to finally come and give them a chance to return to the world and the past. They were not like Tianyang the Great. It seems that the fallen gods of the past have fear in their hearts, Yi Futian said coldly, with hints of mockery. These figures who had once been great emperors feared him and thus came to kill him. Say whatever you want. Today, all of this will cease to exist, The other party replied indifferently. They were dismissive of Yi Futian's words. It should not have been so fast. Furrowing her brows, Shi Kaiyaro said, "How did you all do it?" She was like these people. Naturally, she knew some things. What methods did you all take to reach this step? Shi Kaiyaro continued to ask. Hearing Shi Qiao's words, Yi Futian also had a surprised expression. Then he seemed to think of something and asked, "You all went to the human realm?" Naturally, he knew about that matter too. Of course, he also remembered how the human ancestor had sent someone to invite him before. At that time, they had guessed that the human realm might convince some top cultivators of the divine prefecture to join them. Then, these big ancient god clans may very well be among them. Plus, these ancient god clans all had former great emperors. The human ancestors' promise would be the most tempting and attractive to them. A sharp flash of murderous intent appeared in the eyes of the Vajra realm lord. While divine power surged, he raised his hands and pointed straight up at Shi Kaiyaro in the sky. The finger penetrated the skies, and a frightening beam of golden light appeared in the void, going towards Shi Kaiyaro instantly. Boom! A blur flashed by, and Yi Futian's figure appeared, taking Shi Kaiyaro away from her original spot. The frightening divine power stabbed into the void, and it was like a hole opened up in the heavens penetrated by the divine power. "Step back," Yi Futian said. Shi Qiao's situation was the same as the other side before, but she was no longer their match. These people had already been possessed and completed a critical transformation. Yi Futian was unclear about how strong they were now, but since they dared to charge into the Yi Imperial Palace, they were very confident they could kill them. "Everyone, step back," Yi Futian said. Instantly, many people retreated. They all understood that they would not do much in this battle. The vast Yi Imperial Palace became extremely depressed. Even though this place was huge, it did not mean anything for strong cultivators of this level. Their attacks could cover it directly. Yi Futian had a thought, and instantly, frightening will of the emperor flooded out. Green divine light shone in the heavens. At the same time, countless runes appeared in the sky above the Yi Imperial Palace. It was like a curtain of light. These runes were all runes of the sword way, containing immense swordsmanship chi. At the same time, an emperor-level divine sword hovered at the peak of the Yi Imperial Palace, pulsing with immense sword will. Yi Futian's figure seemed to have become one with the world here. His will became the will of the land. The runes in the heavens transformed into the sharpest divine swords and quickly unified into a huge divine sword. Then Yi Futian pointed down the sky. The divine sword instantly stabbed down murderously, carrying the immense will of the sword. Poof! The sharp sound ripped apart the void. The frightening divine sword ignored the distance in the space and pierced down murderously, stabbing toward the Vajra realm lord. This sword attack was extremely shocking. It broke apart the land like a sword that would destroy the world. It was aggressive and domineering, tearing apart the space. Countless beams of sword will buried that portion of the sky. Emperor weapon, divine formation. The strong cultivators of the ancient god clans looked up into the sky. The great emperors were all stunned while looking at the incoming sword. As expected, it was correct for them to have not come in the past. If they had attacked here before, they probably would not be able to fend off such a divine sword attack. A storm of divine power suddenly swept up around the Vajra realm lord. In an instant, unsurmountable divine might enveloped the land and sky. With his body as the core, the Vajra realm's divine power converged into a frightening curtain of light. There seemed to be a god behind him. The terrifying storm of divine power gathered, and the ancient god of the Vajra realm pointed forward. It was like a true heavenly god's point. Countless beams of finger light shone forth, and they were all created from the Vajra realm's divine power. And the pointed finger went straight towards the frighteningly intense incoming divine sword. The Vajra realm lord did not avoid it and faced the sword attack squarely. For his current state, any being below the great emperor plane were like ants. He did not care. Even if a true great emperor released emperor weapons and divine formations, why would he care? The two attacks clashed together, and a muffled sound was emitted from the entire Yi Imperial Palace. It was as if the space was being ripped apart as the destructive windstorm swept through the place. The Vajra realm's divine power was an indestructible and sharp divine power. Even when it crashed against the huge sword, it still stabbed through directly. The huge divine sword broke bit by bit from the center and crumbled. After the divine sword was destroyed, the divine power of the Vajra realm was still there. When the destructive windstorm scattered, Futian's eyes grew extremely grave. He stared down from the sky. He could mostly get a feel of the other party's abilities from this attack. It was only one person, but he was already this strong, while there were countless figures of this level on the other side. How could he counter them? The Vajra realm lord's eyes held some shades of mockery. They had killed all the way here, sweeping all of the beings, but he actually was not as impatient now. He kind of felt bad about killing a cultivator like Futian, who was qualified to become a great emperor. Chapter 2783 Die with Honor. Futian, I can give you a way to survive. Will you choose it? The Vajra realm lord asked. His voice held penetrative power, and the cultivators of the Yi imperial palace felt their eardrums hurt. The former great emperor had combined with the Vajra realm lord, becoming one. He had recovered his divine power, and though he still had not recovered to his prime, he was already under the emperor plane. Even his voice contained divine power. The people of the Yi imperial palace could feel it. They felt hopeless and looked up at Futian in the sky. Perhaps they would face unprecedented danger today. Would they be able to reverse the tides this time? A way to survive. Futian looked at the other. He understood clearly that there was only one path to resolving this under the circumstances. Everyone under the great emperor plane were ants. He must kowtow under the other's foot, accept the other's control and give up everything. This is what the other wanted. In reality, they had lost the ability to relieve the situation after the storm that year. One party had to be destroyed. However, he seemed to indeed be one step slower. The other had reached the next level one step sooner, even though this might have been because of the human ancestor. But the process was not necessary. It was the result that was important. While the Vajra realm lord spoke, a boundless divine formation appeared in the sky. The divine formation contained boundless and infinite sword will as if it was the power of divine punishment. Futian took a look. It was another reincarnated great emperor of the ancient god clan preparing to attack. He had a thought, and a horrifying spatial storm appeared in the sky. The rules in this place surged, and countless swallowing spaces appeared in the vast space. In addition, a huge swallowing wheel appeared. It was like a black hole that could swallow up everything in the world. Very strong rules of space flooded outside of this black hole storm. In the sky, it was as if the will of the great emperor was awakening. This land originally had a will of the great emperor. This had once been where the Maharaja of the 8 legions had been located. Futian's eyes changed. His body melted into that space, disappearing into the black hole. This windstorm flooded down the sky. The black hole swallowed everything in the world, including the force of the great path, causing many of the sword will to disappear after being swept into the black hole. Interesting. The Vajra realm lord looked up into the sky. His golden eyes held divine power and were extremely sharp. The will of the Maharaja from the ancient 8 legions. Unfortunately, this does not exist. As soon as he finished speaking, a frightening will shot into the heavens, causing that horrifying swallowing storm in the sky to ripple. The other reincarnated great emperors also released their wills. The entire Yi imperial palace was enveloped by the wills of these great emperors, making people feel truly suffocating pressure. Every will was of the great emperor level. Even though these great emperors had not returned to their peak, they had already awoken again and returned. It was the true will of the great emperor. Just as the other had said, if King Maharaja had come back to life, he would naturally be able to force back their will. But Maharaja did not exist anymore while they had indeed returned. Boom! The silhouette of the Vajra realm's ancient god raised a hand and pointed at the sky. In an instant, the divine power of the Vajra realm transformed into various sharp blades that penetrated the void. The blades did not fly out of his hand. Instead, It crossed through the void and stabbed into the black hole storm that could swallow everything. The various sharp blades came from an ancient god's hand and could stab through the spatial storm directly. The black hole storm swallowed it up, but the other end was still in the hand of the ancient god. Divine power burst forth, flooding wildly into the black hole storm, wanting to rip the black hole storm apart. The black hole storms rolled and thundered as if they were about to collapse. At the same time, the force of divine punishment transformed by the countless divine swords also stabbed into the black hole storm. These ancient gods wanted to make the black hole storm collapse forcefully. Boom, boom, boom. Many thunderous sounds shook the sky and land. The windstorms that had appeared above the Yi Imperial Palace were collapsing simultaneously, getting ruined and destroyed. Billions of divine swords flew out at once, racing towards Yi Futian. Suddenly, a very strong beam of the sword will appeared in the sky. 4 figures appeared at the same time. The 4 great swordsmen were the Supreme Swordlord, Yi Wuchen, Yaya, and Swordsmaster of Lihan. Of course, the Supreme Swordlord was the leader, while Yi Wuchen and the other swordsmen were support. They released the Emperor-level will that they'd comprehended that year and activated the Emperor-level divine weapon. With the Supreme Swordlord as the main sword formation leader, a massive divine sword formation appeared above the windstorm. The 2 forces of sword will crashed wildly against each other, collapsing in the void and upending the world. HMPH. There was a cold huff, and then a Futian great palm seal appeared in the sky. It passed through the broken sword will directly and slammed into the Supreme Swordlord and the others in the sky. Beamy B. They pushed the huge sword to crash against it, but the moment that the Futian divine power was released, it already crushed everything. The great palm seal transformed into the sky, representing the will of Futian. It was incomparable. Boom. With a massive crash, the Emperor-level divine sword fell down and finally caused the Futian great palm seal to shake. However, the Emperor-level divine sword was still sent flying back. The Supreme Swordlord and other strong cultivators were sent flying too. They grunted, and fresh blood trickled out of their mouths. They had not been hit directly. It was the divine power contained in the will of Futian that had hurt them. Insects are trying to shake a tree, the leader of the Futian clan said. He had once been Futian the Great. One could imagine how incredibly strong he had been before to name himself after Futian, the vast heavens. He represented the will of Futian. The divine power that he cultivated was also the divine power of Futian. Now, even though he had not returned fully, he could already release his will and divine power at the same time. How could these people counter him with only one Emperor-level weapon? He could sweep away everything by himself and kill into the Yi Imperial Palace. And yet, they had all come together. Yi Futian glanced at the Supreme Swordlord and the others. He felt some despair. Naturally, he also thought that these people were already returning. Even though they had not become emperors directly after returning, they were already near great emperors. These near great emperors were not the same as other near-deity cultivators. Even if the other near-deity cultivators had very detailed and strong cultivations, they had not touched the ultimate power yet. But these people had felt it before. They had once been true great emperors. Yi Futian, it is still your honor to die here today, the Futian clan leader announced, his voice reverberating the sky. It was still Yi Futian's honor to die because he would die in their hands. Countless great emperors had allied today to kill Yi Futian. As the descendant of a great emperor and heir of many great emperors, you aren't willing to surrender. Then, today I will bestow upon you an honored death. You may rest in peace, the Vaja realm leader said. His voice was extremely cold and arrogant. Bestowing death upon Yi Futian was his honor. It was only because they were high and mighty great emperors. Merely dying in their hands was an honor, let alone all of them descending together to kill Yi Futian. No one else in the divine prefecture would have this honor. Killing him was his own honor. What kind of arrogance was this? What kind of mockery was this? But these people had once been great emperors. Right now, all the strong cultivators of the Yi Imperial Palace only felt suffocating pressure. The repressive aura shrouded everyone. It was not only Yi Futian today. The group of great emperors saw everyone's lives as nothing. Everything under the great emperor plane were mere ants. If Yi Futian lost, then everyone would die here today. The other party would not let anyone go. The Yi imperial palace was a hole. At this moment, Yi Futian's body entered the upper sky. His chi surged wildly within him, flowing towards the outer world. Emerald green divine light from his life palace combined with the will of the world. His own will incorporated into the world too. His cultivation had improved his abilities significantly these past few years. He was incomparable to the past and could not be spoken of in the same way, but even so, he was not facing the controllers of ancient god clans anymore. Instead, they were returned great emperors. Plus, it was not only one. Under these circumstances, he would only have a sliver of chance by borrowing the will of ancient great emperors and fully combine with the will of Mahoraga that was contained in the relics. As if sensing something, the group of strong cultivators looked up into the sky. There was scorn in their eyes. Yi Futian still had not given up and wanted to turn the tides. He was dreaming. The people are always so delusional. They're already hopeless, but they still hold on to the fantasy. It's just the struggle before death. What meaning is there for an ant's struggle? The Futian clan leader said loudly. His voice was indifferent and held a lofty feeling. He did not respect Yi Futian at all. He was no longer the controller of the Futian clan. The strong cultivators of the Yi Imperial Palace did not think that the other party was being cocky when they heard this voice. Instead, the voice seemed solemn and grave, as if stating a fact. That was the voice of a great emperor, and it was accompanied by a divine might. The masses were ants, while they were the rulers of the world. What meaning was there for an ant's struggle? Perhaps it was because Yi Futian was the first person they wanted to kill after returning, or maybe he was the first opponent, so they were a bit more talkative. Even though they did not truly see Yi Futian as an opponent, they still gave Yi Futian some respect. In their eyes, they had come personally to kill Yi Futian, and several had come together. This was already respect. It was Yi Futian's honor. He could die with honor. Die, a calm voice said. It was a distant tone, as if announcing the result that had already been determined. In the sky, the Futian might shrouded the land. A face appeared above his body. It seemed to represent Futian. This face then transformed into a huge figure, like a heavenly deity. It raised a hand and slammed down at the lower sky. Countless Futian great palm seals abruptly shot down. The ground shattered, and everything was about to be destroyed. The palm seals covered the entire Yi Imperial Palace. Everything was about to be destroyed. Chapter 2784 Divine War. The falling Futian great palm seals contained Futian divine power and were abominable. As soon as the palm seals appeared, the cultivators in the entire Yi Imperial Palace felt a divine might. It was the weight of Futian. It felt suffocating, and their blood thundered as if their bodies were about to implode. They could not imagine what would happen if they were hit by the divine power within the great palm seal. They could not withstand the divine print of Futian at all. Just then, a brilliant beam of divine light lit up throughout the entire Yi Imperial Palace. The golden divine light swept by, transforming into an incredible sheet of light. At the same time, divine music sounded, filling the sky. A group of figures appeared in the sky above the Yi Imperial Palace. This group of strong cultivators had directly formed a divine formation, using their flesh bodies to create the formation. They stood in different directions of the Yi Imperial Palace, and the silhouette of the war god appeared behind their bodies, looming over the land. The cultivators of the lost clan, the people of the Yi Imperial Palace all looked up to the sky. The newcomers were the strong cultivators of the lost clan. Headed by the elders of the lost clan, the 360 lost clan cultivators formed this super war formation. Most of the people were for aid, while the truly strong cultivators were those at the elder level. This time, all the elders had come out. The strong cultivators of the lost clan who had not gotten involved with matters seemed incredibly ancient, but they had stepped out this time too. This was not only the matter of the Ziwei Imperial Palace, but it also pertained to the lost clan. The current Yi Imperial Palace included the Ziwei Imperial Palace, West Imperial Palace, and the Lost Clan. If one flourished, all flourished. If one was ruined, all were ruined. Divine light shimmered subtly in that strong war formation. It was supposed by ancient emperor-level weapons, and divine power surged. It covered the sky and sun, blocking the sky above the Yi Imperial Palace. The Futian divine palm seals rained down, emitting muffled thunders as if the world was about to break apart. The curtain of divine light cracked immediately and broke apart. But then the ancient figures who'd appeared pushed up the sky. Boom, boom, boom. The thunderous noises continued, streaming out endlessly. The leader of the Futian clan stood high in the sky and gazed at the cultivators of the Lost Clan with his divine eyes. It was as expected of an ancient clan. They formed a battle formation with their flesh and did not fear death. However, all effort was futile. The Lost Clan was only a clan abandoned by the deities. How could they resist a true deity? The godlike bodies broke apart one by one, and the ancient god's silhouette was crumbling. All cultivators of the Lost Clan withstood the immense pressure of divine power. Under the reverberations of the divine power, many strong Lost Clan cultivators under the formation spat out blood, and their bodies fell down the sky. They could not take it anymore and died on the spot. The elders of the Lost Clan were withstanding most of the pressure, but their cultivations were stronger. The Lost Clan cultivators who had not gone through the tribulations yet were still too weak. They could not take it, and deaths kept occurring. Plus, as the Futian divine power continued attacking, some of the Lost Clan elders also started spitting out blood. It was like cracks had appeared in their bodies, and they could die on the spot at any time. Seeing this situation, the Supreme Swordlord and his group used the divine sword to attack. Blind Tai, Fang Kun, and the others all contributed their weapons, attacking up the sky. Shi Kai Yaro, Jiyu Dong Liu, and all other strong cultivators who could fight, such as those who had inherited emperor weapons, all started attacking. Even Xia Qingyuan went up to the sky. Her cultivation was only at the peak of the Renhuang Plain, but she had inherited a great emperor's heritage. She activated the Lotus of Life, causing a sacred lotus to appear in the sky. It kept enlarging, and the flower petals bloomed. She went towards the group in the sky, and the intent of life flowed out continuously. Even so, people still kept getting injured and were hurled down from the sky. It was incredibly tragic. At that time, there was a strange commotion in the sky. Yi Futian's entire body had disappeared, becoming one with the will of the world. A huge godly silhouette of Mahorga appeared. There were many pythons hanging from its body. The frightening but ancient heavenly deity formed by Mahorga opened his bloody maw and started devouring the Vajra realm lord and other cultivators. His big mouth swallowed everything, covering the entire sky. With one move, it swallowed up that sky, causing all those figures to disappear. A cold huff came from within the silhouette of Mahorga. Then intense divine light burst out of it. The light was brilliant, and divine power was suffused in it. There was a horrifying boom that kept shaking the silhouette of Mahorga. Bang! After an intense explosive sound, the godly silhouette collapsed. The group of cultivators appeared in the sky. Those former great emperors were there. So what if they had gotten devoured? Divine power wrapped around them all and could not hurt them. But the moment they reappeared, another huge face appeared in the sky. It was still Mahorga's face. He let out a huge roar. The angry roar of an ancient god caused the souls of many cultivators to tremble. Some of the enemy cultivators of the ancient god clans collapsed directly and died on the spot, getting killed by the reverberations. This roar contained the will of the great emperor. This scene made the great emperors a bit shocked. Under these circumstances, their people could still get killed directly by Yi Futian. This intensified the murderous intent in their eyes. It was not great for this kind of thing to happen before them, even though they did not care about those people's lives, despite them being their descendants. What they cared about was that even ants could fight back. This upset them greatly. At the same time, shocking divine power descended. A huge godly silhouette of Mahorga wielding a divine ruler hacked down directly. This ruler covered the sky and sun, and the atrium was instantly filled with ruler silhouettes. Each ruler contained immense power. The sky became very heavy, as if the world would collapse if this ruler fell down. Divine power. The great emperors went up higher. Divine power flooded into a curtain of light, but when the divine ruler arrived, the curtain of light was shattered. The ruler silhouettes that filled the sky continued raining down at them, actually making them feel a bit of pressure. The ants in their eyes made them feel pressure. This scene made them furrow their brows, and they all raised their hands to attack. The Vajra realm divine print and Futian great palm seal were sent out. When the sky full of ruler silhouettes rained down, the Vajra realm divine print and Futian great palm seal were shattered too. Attacks from Mahoraga in the sky did not stop. Supported by divine power, emerald green divine light filled the boundless sky and land. The divine ruler continued to dance, attacking once again. This blow shook the sky. The entire Yi imperial palace was shaking. This attack was incomparable. Chapter 2785 Hopeless Situation. There was a cold humph, and the mountain lord of the infinite mountains waved his hand. Instantly, infinite divine swords attacked murderously, clashing against the divine ruler silhouettes filling the sky. The divine swords seemed endless, and each sword contained immense sword will. The endless stream of attacks crashed against the divine ruler silhouettes filling the sky and blocked the incoming divine rulers. Now, the mountain lord of the infinite mountains was Wuliang the Great. The divine power that he had created was the infinite divine power. Everything in the world would begin to change physically once they reached a certain number, while infinite meant that it was never-ending. He could casually lift a finger, and the sword would become an infinite stream of swords. The beam of sword will would become infinite sword will without an end. If you wanted to destroy infinity, you needed a strong enough attack to destroy the infinite divine power instantly. If your explosive force weren't strong enough, you would not get another chance. He borrowed the will of Mahoraga, and the power of the divine ruler's attack is already close to your level. The divine power contained in this divine ruler is not the ordinary path. It's like the most primitive force, the leader of the ancient Jiang clan said after standing quietly the entire time. Naturally, he was no longer his original self anymore. It was the consciousness of Heavenly Emperor Jiang controlling the body of this cultivator. As a former great emperor, he could feel how extraordinary Yi Futian's divine power was. Yi Futian's opportunity was not simple. Yes, he received this item from House Karura. It's the divine item to restrain the demonic lord and may contain the power of the former heavenly path. It might not be himself. "He's quite lucky," Yuanxia the Great said. His voice was indifferent, but his eyes shone with a different kind of light. Could they receive such a divine item after killing Yi Futian? However, they had 5 strong figures. There wouldn't be enough to go around. Even though it's not his power, it is already extraordinary that he can combine with the force and use it for himself. If this boy does not die, he will have a chance to step onto the great path and path of the emperors under the changing circumstances, Heavenly Emperor Jiang said. He thought highly of Yi Futian. But thinking highly of Yi Futian did not affect his decision to kill him. It was because of Yi Futian's talent that he must be destroyed. If he stepped onto the path of the emperors in the future, he would pose a threat to them. If not for their existing rivalries, he would not be willing to kill such a talented figure. It was just a pity that he was destined to die. No one could change this result. Since 6th Emperor would not step in this time, no one would save Yi Futian. And 6th Emperor would probably not interfere. As they spoke, another attack fell. The huge body of Mahoraga hefted the divine ruler and attacked again. It was extremely aggressive, and this blow was even more powerful and unstoppable. When this attack fell, it penetrated Wuliang the Great's attack instantly. The infinite divine power was broken through. This shocked all of the great emperors. This divine ruler's attack had a different force from the great path. Other than the terrifyingly strong force, it seemed also to have the penetrative abilities of the great path of space. It had penetrated the infinite divine power in an instant. Although Wuliang the Great had been careless, this kind of attack was enough to be intimidating. The extremely aggressive attacks kept raining down on them, but a beautiful spatial curtain of light hung over the place where the cultivators stood in the lower sky. The divine ruler's attacks seemed to sink into the void when it hit the curtain. The spatial curtain of light rippled and showed no other reaction. It was Heavenly Emperor Jiang. "It's time to end," Heavenly Emperor Jiang said. He raised a hand and pointed into the sky. Instantly, divine light radiated through the vast sky. Divine power flooded out, rushing into the clouds. Bang! There was a muffled sound in the atrium. In that instant, it was like the entire land was covered by this divine power and was instantly shackled. The roaring and surging windstorm fell silent instantly and stopped its commotion. The cultivators of the Yi Imperial Palace all halted and looked up into the sky. They saw countless golden runes appear in the storm that had been surging earlier. All the rune light made from the divine power had shackled the space, turning it into a divine formation that sealed it. It contained incredible spatial force. The hearts of all the strong cultivators beat quickly. They looked towards Heavenly Emperor Jiang again. He pointed at the sky, and a straight light beam appeared between him and the upper space. Divine power poured crazily into the air. This was Heavenly Emperor Jiang's divine power. It sealed Mahoraga's violent intent with the unsurmountable spatial divine power. Yi Futian's consciousness was naturally sealed within too. His consciousness had already been combined with the land. This was why he could feel the restrictive divine power even more clearly. Break. Haotian the Great sent the Haotian divine print against the body of Mahoraga that had been attacking them. Instantly, there was a muffled sound in the void. Mahoraga's body shattered. However, Mahoraga's body did not exist, so it did not truly threaten Yi Futian. What threatened him was the force in the upper space. At this time, the storm in the atrium started roaring again as if it would break free from the restraint. This surprised Heavenly Emperor Jiang. Could it break free from the shackles of his divine power? The law within this divine ruler was indeed extraordinary. But, so what? How could human power change the intent of a heavenly emperor? Divine light gathered, and countless beams of divine power solidified into a long halberd. Heavenly Emperor Jiang held the divine halberd, and his figure flashed, disappearing from the spot. The next moment, the divine halberd formed by divine power hacked down on the center of the divine formation. The divine power in the formation started to explode madly in an instant. The destructive divine power went wild, destroying everything. The storm formed by the will of Mahoraga was getting destroyed wildly. Even though the 5 great emperors had attacked many times since arriving, it was the first time they attacked with their divine weapon like Heavenly Emperor Jiang. This blow split the atrium and ripped the space. There was a muffled sound. The cultivators of the Yi Imperial Palace saw many cracks appear. Fresh blood spattered out of one place. It looked gruesome. Then a figure appeared in that area. It was Yi Futian. Seeing this scene, the hearts of the Yi Imperial Palace cultivators dropped. Their pallor was white as paper. After all, Yi Futian was not a great emperor. He could only borrow the will of Mahoraga, while the other party was a true reincarnated great emperor and returned for this battle. How strong was he? The Yi Imperial Palace had not faced this kind of crisis since its establishment. It could be said to be a fatal catastrophe with no way of turning the tides. 5 great emperors from ancient times had returned. No one could counter them. They had all worked hard on cultivating in the past few years, but they could only study the will of the great emperor to improve themselves. And right now, they were faced with actual great emperors. Chapter 2786 Despair. It's over, Heavenly Emperor Jiang said in a low voice. The divine halberd flew out of his hand, stabbing straight into the sky. The distance had no effect as it went straight toward Yi Futian's true body. Bang! The divine halberd was stopped with a huge bang. A frightening gust of battle will exploded violently. It was the will of the great emperor. A woman clothed in white appeared before Yi Futian. Ling Long had taken out the divine sword that controlled the divine formation and made a frightening thrust. It crashed against the divine halberd, blocking the fatal blow. A divine body formed by the will. Heavenly Emperor Jiang looked up at Ling Long and naturally sensed that the other was materialized by the pure will of Tianchen. The battle intent wrapped around her body was extremely shocking. Just then, endless sword will appeared in the sky. The countless divine swords rained down. Ling Long hefted the divine sword and pressed down on the lower sky. A huge sword instantly appeared in the sky. It carried horrifying battle intent as it broke through the sky, ripping the space. It was the heaven-slaying divine sword. BENB. Why would Heavenly Emperor Jiang care? He reached out his hand, and the divine halberd returned. Then his body went up the sky, stabbing with the divine halberd. A beam of spatial divine light appeared in the sky, ripping the space. A straight space passage appeared in the sky. It crashed against the heaven-slaying divine sword, causing cracks to appear in the divine sword. It broke from the center. At the same time, the Tianchen of the Viagra realm also moved. His eyes glanced at Yi Futian. These people were quite strong. They had already started attacking seriously, but they still had not killed Yi Futian. His figure flashed upward, and divine power surged. At this time, a sheet of rain fell on him. He paused and saw Shi Kaiyaro charging over with the raindrop divine sword. As soon as the sword was out, the sky started raining. Countless raindrops fell, and each drop contained sword will that could penetrate everything. The raindrops joined into thread, transforming into continuous sword will, and attacked the great emperor of the Vajra realm. However, the other's eyes had turned golden and carried some hints of scorn. He was dismissive. Raising a hand, the Vajra realm divine power attacked as a pointing finger, crashing directly into the raindrop divine sword. At this moment, two extremely sharp wills were clashing squarely. The great emperor of the Vajra realm felt cracks appear in his finger after the continuous attacks from the sword will, getting penetrated bit by bit. However, the strong attack also sent the raindrop divine sword and Shi Qiao's body flying out. The will of the Western Emperor. The great emperor of the Vajra realm looked at that divine sword. It contained the will of the Western Emperor. Just like the five of them, the Western Emperor had been an ancient great emperor. His will was undying and survived in the world in another form. This was why it could have cracked his finger earlier. But this was not enough at all. His entire body was dazzling. The Vajra realm divine power wrapped around his body, letting the countless raindrops fall on him because it could not damage his defenses at all. It did not pose a threat. He took a step forward and directly disappeared from the spot. He pointed, and the Vajra realm divine power started exploding wildly. Countless beams of finger light penetrated the air, destroying everything. Shi Kaiyaro waved her raindrop divine sword but could not fend off the great emperor's finger. There were many poofs, and then Shi Kaiyaro let out a muffled grunt. Her body was sent flying, and her clothes were red with blood. Her long dress had turned bloody. She could not stop the attacks. The Vajra realm divine power was still pointed at her. It was about to penetrate and destroy her entirely, but another woman's figure appeared beside Shi Kaiyaro. It was actually Hua Jiyu. The space seemed to freeze where she stood. Her eyes had become extremely demonic, and a frightening spiritual will controlled this place. It weakened the Vajra realm's force a little. The Tianchen of the Vajra realm looked at her after seeing this scene. Then a horrifying burst of the will of Tianchen descended. It was like there was an extremely aggressive will in the void that destroyed her spiritual abilities. The divine finger did not stop. It even sped up to kill the two. "Careful," Lord Chen said. His body appeared in that space and starry light flowed about. It was transformed into a sealed spatial world. The divine power hit the curtain of starry light, causing Lord Chen to grunt. The number of people was meaningless when faced with absolute strength. Haotian the Great huffed coldly. They were gradually losing their patience. He slapped his hand in the air, and the stars were all obliterated. Lord Chen and the others were sent flying out. They spat out fresh blood, and their faces were ghastly. They were all feeling despair. The others were too strong. If it was only one or two great emperors, they might still be able to struggle. If they all worked together, they could have a chance in a battle. But 5 great emperors had returned, and they were unstoppable. Futian the Great prepared to continue attacking. An extremely sharp and domineering will spread in the sky. He lifted his head slightly and saw a blind man wielding a divine hammer. He attacked from the heavens, and when the hammer fell, the world let out a muffled sound. It was enough to shatter the void. You want to die? Futian the Great shot up straightly into the sky. He was feeling impatient. These people kept attacking, making it so that they had not killed Futian yet. He was a bit angered. His body shot into the clouds and entered the terrifying shockwaves. However, an absolute domain formed around his body. He was covered in the divine power and will of Futian and was untouchable. The sky tremor attacked continuously, and the destructive blows came without a stop. This was a bit of an obstacle for Futian the Great. The Futian divine power burst from his body, and he raised a hand toward the sky, releasing the Futian divine seal. It covered the sky and sun, going up against the tide. Everything in its path was disintegrated and turned to dust. The sky tremor's shockwaves were also shot down. Then the Futian divine print crashed against the sky tremor. There was a string of muffled sounds. The sky tremor flew out of Blind Tai's hands and flew up the sky. At the same time, Blind Tai's body was sent flying out. His internal organs were all shattered. He spat out blood, and his face was colorless. Father. Tai Chu called out, feeling despair. He hated his inabilities. The only ones who could make some counterattacks on this battlefield were Futian and Ling Long. However, they were faced with 5 great emperors. This was such a hopeless situation. They did not see any sliver of hope. Palace Lord, please leave quickly, they heard someone yell to Futian. It was Lord Chen's voice. He was asking Futian to leave. Futian was skilled in celerity and had supernatural abilities. If he wanted to escape, there was a chance that he could make it. However, the enemies were attacking the Yi Imperial Palace, and everyone was in there. Futian would not want to leave under the circumstances. They could only persuade Futian to leave. Palace Lord. The voices rose up in waves. They were actually all pleading to Futian to leave with anticipation. They would not escape from such a hopeless situation, so they would continue fighting even if the entire army were wiped out. They would die here. There would only be hope for revenge if Futian left. One could see how much despair the people of the Yi Imperial Palace felt for them to ask Futian to flee. Chapter 2787. Can he escape? Futian used his mind, and then his body disappeared from the spot. It seemed that he was prepared to escape. This kind of decisiveness surprised all of the 5 great emperors. Would Futian really escape without caring for these people's lives? This did not suit Futian's personality. Otherwise, he could have done this in the Ziwei segmentum back then. It was clear that Futian wanted to use his escape to make them chase after him and give the cultivators of the Yi Imperial Palace more opportunities to survive. Escape? Can you escape? They sneered coldly. There were 5 great emperors here, and Futian still wanted to escape? So what if he could use celerity? In an instant, Futian's figure appeared again in the void. The Vajra realm divine power had formed a domain in the atrium that sealed the Yi Imperial Palace. Beautiful divine light lit up in the surrounding skies. This was the Vajra domain. Celerity could cross any distance, but it could not forcefully open up a domain. This territory had been sealed off. If Futian wanted to use celerity to break free and escape, he would have to destroy the domain. With a straight backside, Futian went further up. He transformed into a bolt of lightning. His divine body seemed to be advancing as a sword, and it hit the Vajra domain directly. There was a muffled sound, and the Vajra domain cracked, but it did not shatter. The Vajra realm great emperor glanced at Futian and stepped forward. He ignored Shi Kaiyao, who wanted to stop him. She was not his match. Shi Kaiyao looked up at the atrium. Futian was still attacking the Vajra domain, but then the Vajra realm great emperor arrived. He pointed forward without making any other actions and was about to kill Futian. Futian's entire body shone brilliantly. The green divine light wrapped around him. He pushed a divine sword downward to counter the force of the finger. But then the divine sword shattered and broke apart from the center. The Vajra realm divine power was indestructible and unbreachable. It passed through the divine sword directly, stabbing Yi Futian's body. That instant, Yi Futian still let out a grunt even though he had formed a divine body. The divine power penetrated his own divine power, rushing into Yi Futian's body. With a poof, his body disappeared from the spot and reappeared elsewhere, but he still spat out a mouthful of blood. You are immortal, and yet you dream of shaking the gods. The Vajra realm great emperor spoke indifferently. His cold voice filled the sky. The voice of a great emperor could echo throughout the world, like the great path rules. It caused countless people's hearts to pulse and reverberate in their eardrums. A mortal who dreamed of shaking the gods was delusional. These words were filled with insufferable arrogance. The Vajra realm divine power started flowing through his body. Countless beams of golden divine light circled his body as if he was transforming into a true deity. Even though he had not reached his peak since returning, he was still a returned great emperor. How could a mortal be his match? No one could stop him. All of those who could fight couldn't even take a single hit. They could not stop the attacks of the 5 great emperors, even Ling Long, who was the strongest. Seeing this scene, the Yi imperial palace sank into the emotion of despair. The strong cultivators from the 5 ancient god clans watched everything from the back. Their eyes scanned the cultivators of the Yi imperial palace. This result had already been determined when Yi Futian became their enemy back then. Their gods had returned, and the ancient god clans would be revived, returning to the brilliance of the ancient times. Yi Futian was their stepping stone, and the first being they would wipe out. The 5 ancient god clans would step over Yi Futian's corpse to announce their return. In the current era, the 6 emperors were already in tacit agreement that the age of gods had arrived. Then, there would not be any other concerns. In this despair, some of the juniors actually had tears in their eyes. It was their first time being in such a hopeless situation, seeing their god Yi Futian repressed like this. 5 great emperors had come for blood. Who could fight them? Shikayaro looked up at the sky. A terrifying aura rushed out of her body. It was like her body was burning. Strands of light flooded into the raindrop divine sword. Her expression turned painful, and her body quivered. Her body, divine soul, and that raindrop divine sword started resonating and combining with each other. An even stronger sword will flowed in the raindrop divine sword. Divine light flowed as if divine power was extending out of the divine sword. Some power was awakening within the divine sword. Oh! Yuanxia the Great looked in the direction of Shikayaro. They were extremely sensitive and naturally sensed the changes in Shi Qiao's body. She was evolving. Her raindrop divine sword was also evolving. Shikayaro was also from an ancient god clan. She had come from the West Imperial Palace and had an ancient god's heritage. This was a similarity between them. Plus, Shikayaro was known as the cultivator most suited for the West Emperor's heritage. This rumor had been learned from years ago. Shikayaro had also been set as the goddess of the West Imperial Palace long ago and would rule the palace in the future. Her compatibility for the West Emperor's heritage surpassed that of any cultivator of the West Imperial Palace in the past. As ancient gods, they naturally understood what this meant. Especially now that some force was awakening within Shikayaro, they seemed to understand something. It seemed that another ancient god was returning. However, Shikayaro was quite harsh on herself to reach this step. Did she not care about herself anymore? Their juniors were not so obedient. When Shikayaro looked up at the sky, her eyes had changed. They were different from before. It was as if those were the eyes of the true West Emperor. Yuanxia the Great raised a hand, and the force of divine punishment appeared in the sky above Shikayaro. But Shikayaro moved simultaneously, turning into a blur and vanishing. The raindrop divine sword stabbed through and actually penetrated the incomplete formation of divine punishment. Yuanxia the Great looked up, frowning. The next moment, Shikayaro attacked the Vajra domain with the raindrop divine sword. This sword did not look very strong, and there wasn't any strong shaking. It was like countless raindrops fell down, but a hole appeared in the Vajra domain. It was penetrated by the raindrops, and then it collapsed. In fact, the sword continued rising. It stabbed through the sky above the Yi Imperial Palace, forming an opening in the Yi Imperial Palace. Go! Shi Kaiyaro yelled. Yi Futian released his celerity, and his body vanished. He was the target of the 5 great emperors, so he had to leave the Yi Imperial Palace. Otherwise, all the other cultivators would be affected. Go where? Heavenly Emperor Jiang looked up at the vanished figure. Using his mind, his body also disappeared from the spotless. Celerity of the Buddhist clan was one of the strongest divine techniques in the world. It was traceless, but it was not undefeatable. There were no truly undefeatable techniques in the world. Cultivation level was the basis for everything. They had not yet recovered their abilities from before, but they were still great emperors. How could Yi Futian escape from their hands? The 5 great emperors vanished at the same instant. An attack by their current divine power was enough to make someone lose their combat ability and destroy the way in their bodies. In the distance, many cultivators looked over. Many of them were cultivators of the Ziwei Segmentum and former original realm. They had experienced a massacre earlier. Now that they saw even Yi Futian could not fight back, they couldn't help but feel depressed. Were the few who had attacked already at this strong state? They were like heavenly gods. Cultivators from other regions hurried over too. They were extremely shocked when they saw the scene in the sky. The 5 ancient god clans of the Divine Prefecture had come to hunt and kill Yi Futian. It had once been the 6 ancient god clans, but Yi Futian had wiped out one ancient god clan. Tianyang City and Tianyang the Great had been killed. No wonder the 5 ancient god clans would attack. They were worried that they would follow in the steps of Tianyang the Great. They wouldn't be assured until Yi Futian was killed. Below, Ling Long, Shi Kaiyaro, and others tried to charge up, but they were stopped. They couldn't block the attacks. The other 4 great emperors were still there, using divine power directly to block their paths. They stood in different locations and looked up at Heavenly Emperor Jiang, prepared to witness Heavenly Emperor Jiang kill Yi Futian. Unexpectedly, this hit was not enough. Yi Futian was quite tenacious, as expected of someone who once threatened the ancient god clans. But no matter how strong he was still an ant to them now. He would die today. Tenacious, Heavenly Emperor Jiang said. In that instant, divine power shrouded the vast world. The boundless void was filled with an extremely sharp aura. Countless divine halberds appeared. Each halberd was made of divine power and flared with divine light that could penetrate the sky. The divine halberd before Heavenly Emperor Jiang was especially so. It flared with 10,000 beams of divine light and stabbed towards Yi Futian. Oh no! All the cultivators outside the domain thought when they saw this. Many of their hearts trembled. It was as if they were watching the destruction of Yi Futian. Yi Futian's huge battle form materialized in the sky. He hefted the power of the divine ruler. At the same time, countless spatial divine formations appeared in the sky. The huge wheel of space seemed able to swallow up all attacks. However, when in contrast to the light of all the divine halberds, everyone felt the aura of death. This extraordinary and bright cultivator may very well die in this battle, killed by 5 ancient gods. No! There was a low sound in the lower sky. It was extremely muffled. The person did not scream, the voice was filled with tragedy. It was all women's voices. Many beautiful faces appeared in the lower sky, and they all looked up with despair. They were not even qualified to participate in the battle. Suddenly, it started raining. The raindrops were endless and dropped down as if the sky was crying. At the same time, the divine sword pierced through the sky, shooting murderously towards the atrium. It slammed against the divine power barrier, penetrating it. But at the same moment, all the divine halberds in the sky pierced through, filling the sky with countless beams of divine light. The beams of golden light cut horizontal arcs in the sky. It was extremely shocking. Even the dome of the sky has been stabbed through. Yi Futian was at the center of the attack. Countless eyes were trained on him, witnessing this destructive attack. Chapter 2789 Break the Path. It was as if time had stopped. Countless eyes were trained on the dome of the sky, staring at the destructive divine light that flooded the sky. It was especially so for the strong cultivators from the Yi Imperial Palace. It was as if they could not feel that gust of destructive power. They stared entranced. For them, it was as if everything in the world had stopped moving. Bang! The muffled sound filled the world, causing this vast place to shake. This hit shattered the domain. They saw the battle form shatter and saw the divine light extinguish. Yi Futian's figure disappeared. It was over. The 5 great emperors and strong cultivators of the ancient god clans all had a thought it would be impossible for Yi Futian to still exist after such a hit. Everything below the great emperor level would cease to exist. But they continued to stare up at the sky. Would Yi Futian's power of divine ruler appear after he died? Even as ancient gods, they still wanted that power. The rain continued to fall. The raindrops from the heavens were abnormally sharp and yet contained very heavy emotions of depression. Many people from the Yi Imperial Palace were crying. Their tears fell with the rain. For many people of the Yi Imperial Palace, Yi Futian was family, a friend, a senior, and their belief. Shi Kaiyaro had already broken through the defenses and arrived where Yi Futian had been, but she did not see Yi Futian's figure. As the goddess of the West Imperial Palace, even she was crying now too. A shocking aura flooded from her divine sword. It was swallowing her up, continuously changing her eyes. Poof! There was suddenly a soft sound in the silent space. Somewhere high up in the sky, a figure appeared. It was Yi Futian's figure. His appearance gave a sliver of hope to countless people. He did not die. Yi Futian had not fallen. He was still here. He actually survived such a world-ending blow. However, Yi Futian was in a fragile state right now. Divine light still flowed over his body, but he no longer had the aura of the Great Path. His entire being seemed weak and insubstantial, as if he could disappear at any moment. However, the aura of life continued to envelop him. His vitality had not been extinguished. Right now, Yi Futian had sunk into absolute weakness. All of the paths in his body had been destroyed. The Great Path no longer existed. At the same time, he had entered an extremely miraculous state. He seemed to have a much clearer perception of the world. Even though his ways had been destroyed, in his perception, all the power in the world seemed to have been printed into his mind. This included the other party's divine power. What was the path? The way was the laws that the world operated under. When cultivators studied the power of the path, they were using the rules of the world. Then, what was divine power? Was it separate from the world and a law in and of itself? Perhaps that is so. Color is emptiness, emptiness is color. There is no way in the world. Perhaps the ancients had already pointed out the path, but this path was not easy to step onto. This path had stopped countless extraordinary figures. All of this ran through Yi Futian's mind, while it had only been an instant in the outside world. Heavenly Emperor Jiang and the others could not help but furrow their brows at seeing that Yi Futian was still alive. They believed they'd already shown Yi Futian enough respect. The 5 great emperors had all come to kill Yi Futian. Even if Yi Futian died, it was still an honorable death, but until now, the person they thought could be killed easily, like an ant, was actually still alive. It had been so long, but they still had not killed this ant. As great emperors, this was not very glorious. This Yi Futian was honestly tenacious. He's alive. Shi Kaiyaro looked in Yi Futian's direction, and she had the feeling of surviving from the cracks of danger. A bright smile appeared in her beautiful eyes as if the crisis had already passed. However, the 5 great emperors were still there. Yi Futian had only withstood one attack without dying. Plus, she could also feel that Yi Futian had entered the mystery plane. Boom! Her long hair danced wildly, and the falling raindrops intensified. They continued hammering down from the sky. A great emperor's aura radiated from Shi Kaiyao. Yi Futian's figure disappeared in the curtain of rain. Shi Kaiyaro looked towards Yi Futian. There were tears in her eyes, but she was still smiling. She was reluctant, but she also felt closure, as if looking at him for the last time. Then she closed her eyes, and her entire body became one with the divine sword. When her eyes opened again, they were different. They held some arrogance, as if she was looking down at the world. Heavenly Emperor Jiang and the others all felt the changes in Shi Qiao's aura and temperament simultaneously. They knew that this Shi Kaiyaro was not the same Shi Kaiyaro as before. The founder of the West Imperial Palace, the West Emperor, had returned too. This idiot, Shi Kaiyaro uttered, but it was unknown who she was talking about. The raindrops formed a domain that shrouded this land. There was only unstopping rain within the sheets of rain. There was no Yi Futian. Every drop of rain seemed to be formed by divine power. A curtain of light appeared around Heavenly Emperor Jiang and the Vajra Realm Great Emperor. It covered their bodies, but as the rain kept falling, there were actually dents in the light. Then some places were penetrated. Rain could erode rock through time. These raindrops could penetrate the defenses created by Vajra Realm divine power. West Emperor, Heavenly Emperor Jiang said, raising his head to look at Shi Kaiyaro. Since you are also a returned man, why must we be enemies? We are all from the ancient god clans of the divine prefecture. Our heritages carry the countless years, and we awoke to return. You should not interfere with today's matters. This girl is extremely compatible with me, Shi Kaiyaro said. It was clear that she was no longer herself. I already discovered this years ago. I was unwilling to return in this way and instead wanted to wait for her to grow stronger. However, she actually chose to use this way to help me today. Then, I naturally have to complete her last wish. But can you really do it? Heavenly King Jiang said. Clearly, he did not think the West Emperor could stop them just by returning. After all, it was 1 against 5. It should not take too long. The West Emperor could feel that Yi Futian was completely immersed in his world, entering the mystery plane. He could also feel the raindrops filling the air. The rain dripped down from his body. Every drop contained extremely pure divine power. My force of the great path has been destroyed. My comprehension of the world seems to have become clearer. This was a thought that appeared in Yi Futian's mind. There is no way in the world. Color is emptiness, emptiness is color. These two voices kept echoing in Yi Futian's mind. He also thought of how when he'd been studying in the Buddhist clan, the Buddha had said that the Lord of all Buddhas had gone to the colorless heaven to cultivate Aknantiyatana, Vijnantiyatana, the first sky of the colorless heaven to resonate with the boundless skies. The second sky to make your heart boundless. Nothingness. The cultivators all pursued to have, but the supreme discipline of Buddhism was to pursue nothingness. Since the great path is blocked, then break the path. This thought appeared in Yi Futian's mind. Then a tribulation descended, penetrating his body, cutting his way. Boom! Pain appeared on Yi Futian's face. He had cultivated various ways. Even though Heavenly Emperor Jiang had destroyed the paths with one blow, there were still remaining wills of the path. But now, Yi Futian wanted to break his path. The cultivators of the world all pursued the extremes of the path, wanting more powerful force of the great path. But right now, Yi Futian wished to break his own path. Chapter 2790 The Third Tribulation. The destructive attack cut down directly onto his body, penetrating his body and divine soul. Yi Futian's body trembled, and his pallor was sickly pale. The will of the Great Way started scattering from his body as he was breaking his path. Breaking your path needed a resolute mindset. It was so cruel to take a weapon and hurt yourself. Yet breaking your path was even more terrifying. Hurting the path within you was not only hurting your flesh body. Green divine light flooded out, transforming into the law of the divine ruler as if wanting to return to the force of the outside world instead of his own body. The law of the divine ruler hung in the air. Yi Futian looked up at it and clenched his jaw. Poof! With a thought, the law of the divine ruler passed through his body. It was like stabbing into the demonic lord's body. Even more terrifying destructive wills of the Great Way cut apart the traces of the Great Way within him. The way in his body was being destroyed bit by bit. He had an extremely pained expression. The natal spirit created in the life palace and the divine wheel of the great path were all destroyed, collapsing crazily. More light of the divine ruler gathered and cut down again. It went down on his internal organs, 4 limbs, and hundreds of bones, wiping all the traces clean. The war in the outside world was still happening, but it seemed unrelated to him right now. At the moment, he was going through the most intense pain since birth. It was unimaginable how much pain he had to endure to wipe away all imprints left in his body. P2E. He spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. His body's aura weakened rapidly, but he still did not stop his actions. There was no hope for today's battle anyway. Even if he did not break his path, he would still die, so why not try and see if he could find the way to break through the constraints? This kind of pain lasted for a very long time. Futian closed his eyes. He was already so weak that he couldn't even keep his eyes open. At present, his body hovered in the void powerlessly. He could feel that his current state was like a newborn infant. Everything had gone back to its original state. The only thing that remained was the world tree. The other wills of the path in the world tree's spirit had been broken off. It seemed to have transformed into just an ancient tree. Strands of aura wrapped around him and fused into his limbs and bones, supporting him so that his vitality didn't run out. Everything in the world seemed to have fallen silent. It was extremely quiet. Futian could not sense any outer objects. Floating quietly in the air, his body did not have any impurities left. They had all been removed as if everything had been reset. Humans were in this state when they were first born too. It was also the most original and purest state. However, what was different was that Futian still had his thoughts and his own will. He felt that his body was like a leafy tree. He could easily hover in the air, and he was entering the state of nothingness. In this nothingness, he suddenly saw the entire world again. The battles in the outside world were imprinted in his mind. He also saw the cultivators watching from a distance and the changes in expression of the Yi Imperial Palace cultivators. Everything was so clear. It was as if he could see all beings. Every single thing was imprinted onto his mind, including the fine expressions. Rain continued to splatter from the sky. He seemed to see the sky crying. From nothing to everything. The world tree had melded into Futian's body, fusing with his flesh. The power of the divine ruler was combining with his body bit by bit as if it had always been a part of his body. His broken body was reforming, but there were no impurities at all. A frightening cloud of tribulation suddenly appeared in the dome of the sky. A suffocating windstorm enveloped this place. It was extremely frightening. At that moment, countless people looked up to the sky. Even cultivators who had gone through cultivation could feel fear come from the depths of their souls. This aura frightened them as if it could turn them to dust if it fell upon them. Tribulation. Someone caused a divine tribulation to come at this time. Who had caused this divine tribulation to come? They wanted to find that person, but then they saw the frightening aura lock onto one place. Beams of tribulation light penetrated the rain and entered that place, causing the hearts of all cultivators to race. Futian would undergo tribulation in that domain of rain. He's going to have a breakthrough. Everyone's expressions were shocked. Futian was going to have a breakthrough in a time like this. Plus, Futian's combat ability had already been powerful. Even though it seemed like he was only in the Renhuang Plain, everyone felt that he'd already gone through the second divine tribulation of the Great Path. There were 3 divine tribulations. Futian had already gone through the second divine tribulation of the Great Path, so this one must be, or could it be that Futian had only gone through the first tribulation, despite the terrifying combat ability that he displayed before? But even so, if Futian successfully underwent this tribulation, his cultivation would naturally evolve and become stronger. Heavenly Emperor Jiang and the others frowned. What was going on? Futian was going to go through tribulation now? Their attacks went even wilder, trying to kill Shi Kaiyao. They were a bit annoyed earlier. They still saw Futian as an ant who couldn't change his destiny. He would die without a doubt. But seeing this tribulation, they were a bit doubtful. Yi Futian had already displayed super-strong abilities earlier. If he went through another tribulation, how strong would his cultivation be? But where did this tribulation come from? Shi Kaiyao looked up for a glance. Even though she was no longer just Shi Kaiyao, Shi Qiao's consciousness still had not faded away. When she averted her eyes, she looked down with determined eyes. Boom! The raindrop divine sword hovered in the sky. All the sword rain transformed into a sword river. The rainstorm poured, shooting towards Heavenly Emperor Jiang and the others. Her goal was not to kill the enemy. It was enough to delay them for some time. Whether this was the first or any other number of tribulations, Yi Futian would transform. At that time, even Heavenly Emperor Jiang's group might not be able to deal with him. The aura in the dome of the sky grew even more frightening. The cultivators below started to feel suffocated. They felt the power of strands of supreme law order. It was as if different tribulations of law were coming simultaneously. What is going on? Heavenly Emperor Jiang's brows knitted tightly while attacking. He was an ancient great emperor, but he had never felt this kind of tribulation. It was his first time. The problem for Yi Futian was different from those of the top cultivators in ancient times. Have you seen this tribulation before? Heavenly Emperor Jiang asked the other great emperors with his mind. He was a former great emperor, but he'd never seen this kind of tribulation before. No, the others replied. Their hearts were all impacted strongly, and they were a bit shocked. What kind of strange tribulation was this? Such a chaotic tribulation has not even existed before this, someone said. The 5 great emperors had not seen this before. Chapter 2791 After Tribulation. I don't quite understand the present world after it mutated. Heavenly Emperor Jiang looked up to the sky with complex feelings in his eyes. The destructive divine light fell, and the various cultivators started escaping from this place. They sensed the danger. Even Heavenly Emperor Jiang's group felt a threatening feeling. Divine power circulated in their bodies, forming defensive power. Chaotic tribulation light formed above the sky. Billions of beams of tribulation light shot from the sky dome, going toward the same spot. Even the West Emperor avoided it. His body shimmered, and he left that area. Heavenly Emperor Jiang and the others did not go towards Yi Futian either. The billions of beams of tribulation light rained down simultaneously, hitting Yi Futian's body. The cultivators of the Yi Imperial Palace saw this, and their hearts raced powerfully. The tribulation that Yi Futian was undergoing right now was like Armageddon. Could he withstand it? Everyone looked up into the sky nervously. The billions of beams of light swallowed up Yi Futian's body. There was only destructive divine might there. You could not even see where Yi Futian's body was buried. Heavenly Emperor Jiang and the others trained their gazes there. Could he survive this kind of tribulation too? The power of this tribulation was dangerous even for them. This world does not allow him to exist. That is why this kind of divine tribulation has occurred, Heavenly Emperor Jiang said in a low voice. Yi Futian might have already threatened nature. What kind of force has he formed to incite such a tribulation? Haotian the Great's brows were knitted slightly. They had gone to the human realm before to improve their cultivations a bit. Before this, they could not take that step due to the restrictions of nature. Had Yi Futian taken that step before them now? However, could Yi Futian survive such a destructive divine tribulation? He reached a hand out. Instantly, a gigantic hand appeared in the destructive windstorm above the sky. This hand was formed by the Haotian divine power. Its might weighed down on the world and went straight for the destructive windstorm, grabbing its center. Poof, poof. Sharp sounds streamed out. The Haotian divine seal suffered frightening damages after rushing into the divine tribulation of destruction. However, the divine seal had been constructed of Haotian divine power. It continued to advance, going in and going towards the center. Boom. The storm made from the billions of beams of tribulation light went wild in the air. When the Haotian divine seal entered, it started falling apart, tearing and crumbling. It continuously scattered and was quickly wiped away completely. This was only a tentative attack. Seeing this scene, there was surprise in his eyes, and it was the same for the other great emperors. Their brows knitted tightly. Even the Futian divine seal could not enter the heart of the destructive divine tribulation. One could imagine how much deadly force Futian was bearing. He might die under the divine trial, but if he did not die, then he might threaten them. You all go back first, Heavenly Emperor Jiang said to the strong cultivators of the Jiang clan below. He waved a hand, and a door of space opened instantly. Divine power surged. The other end of the door seemed to be an extremely faraway place. The Jiang ancient god clan cultivators flashed forward and entered it, temporarily leaving this place. It was unexpected that a change had occurred when the 5 great emperors came to kill Futian today. The other great emperors also sent away the cultivators of their ancient god clans. Even though they did not care for their lives, they were still the descendants. It was best to send them away because no one knew what would happen here. They did not continue fighting and killing others. To them, everyone below the great emperor level were ants. If Futian were not qualified to become an emperor, they would not have come to kill Futian. As for the other lives, they did not care at all. All the people they killed had just been convenient along the way. Now, they only wanted to know what changes would occur after Futian's tribulation. At this time, strong cultivators arrived gradually from afar. The strong cultivators of the divine prefecture had arrived. Donghuang the Great had come personally. Yu Sheng also arrived, leading the cultivators of the devil world. The human realm followed. Cultivators of all realms arrived one after another, coming to this area. At the same time, another shocking aura descended from the sky. Emperors might enveloped this area. It was the will of the great emperor that had arrived. Donghuang the Great's face was the first to appear in the sky. He looked down at Futian and saw the frightening tribulation light fade gradually. Futian's body appeared in the center. Right now, he did not have any aura of the great path on his body, but divine light wrapped around his body. His entire body was dazzling, and his skin was like that of an infant's. It was like he'd gone through rebirth, all impurities had been removed, and he'd returned to the original state. Donghuang, were you the one who sent those 5? A cold voice said. It was the Dark Sovereign who'd spoken. A dark figure appeared above the sky, and divine might descended. His voice held some hints of mockery. No, Donghuang the Great refuted directly. His expression was a bit scornful. The Dark Sovereign scoffed coldly. Even if you didn't, you should have arrived very early. 5 former great emperors were working together to kill Futian in the divine prefecture while you just watched. You know that they were former great emperors, so they naturally have their own wills. I'm afraid I can't dissuade them, Donghuang the Great said indifferently. His voice was quite cold and distant. As he spoke, he scanned the 5 people and seemed to figure out something. However, Heavenly Emperor Jiang and the others did not mind. Since they dared to expose themselves, they were naturally confident. HMPH. The Dark Sovereign huffed coldly, and his gaze fell upon Futian. This divine tribulation has never been seen in all of history. He seems to have broken his path to demand from the heavens. This kind of courage is difficult to come by, but I'm afraid it will threaten certain people. Donghuang the Great knew what he was implying and did not reply. Donghuang naturally will not interfere since he promised before. Dark Sovereign, you think too little of the ruler of the divine prefecture, a voice sounded. It was the human ancestor's voice. He roared, the age of gods has come. Everything will happen naturally. I believe everyone wishes to witness a great world. When did the human ancestor become so understanding? The Dark Sovereign said sarcastically. I am the human ancestor, and I rule the human realm. Naturally, I wish humanity can flourish. The human ancestor was full of righteousness. His voice filled with the world and made people want to salute him. However, the Dark Sovereign and others scoffed inside, dismissing the human ancestor's words. While they spoke, another figure moved in the lower sky. It was the Vaja realm Great Emperor. His body flashed, advancing towards Futian. Then he pointed at Yi Futian. The Vajra divine power transformed into a destructive finger that stabbed through the world to kill Yi Futian. A great emperor had descended. He still attacked, wanting to kill Yi Futian. The other great emperors in the sky did not move. They all looked down. What level would Yi Futian be after the divine tribulation? Chapter 2792 One Step Away. After the heavenly path had collapsed, modern cultivation became different from ancient times. The path of the emperors was cut off for those born after the heavenly path had collapsed. However, the Buddha of destiny had said that the age of gods would arrive. Now that the world was changing drastically, would a new path of the emperors appear? Yi Futian's divine tribulation was different from everything in the past. Even the great emperors present were curious. What kind of cultivation path did Yi Futian open up? The frightening Vajra divine power transformed into a divine finger that stabbed through the sky. A beam of golden light appeared at the dome of the sky, cutting open the space. It could penetrate all force of the great path and was about to land on Yi Futian instantly. But then Yi Futian glanced over. His eyes were different now. It was as if he could see through everything in the world, and the world had become more precise and slower. When one's perception became stronger, and reaction speed became faster, everything in the world would become slower in comparison. This was the situation for Yi Futian right now. Divine power. He thought inside, what is the so-called divine power? What was the path? The path was the laws of all beings. Then what was divine power? It was the law one created for themselves. He extended a finger and pressed downward. He crashed directly against the destructive finger formed by the Vajra divine power. A muffled noise sounded throughout the void. Extremely sharp aura swept through the space, transforming into a destructive storm of divine power. It ravaged through the sky, but that destructive finger had been stopped. It did not continue forward. Yi Futian had blocked it with the force of one finger, and it had broken apart in the space. That space seemed to have exploded. The scene was shocking. He blocked it. All the strong cultivators' hearts shuddered as they stared at the scene before them. The hearts of the cultivators of the Yi Imperial Palace were also racing. After the tribulation, Yi Futian could withstand the Vajra realm Great Emperor's attack. They knew what this meant. It was surviving in a desperate situation. The 5 great emperors had come to kill Yi Futian. They forced them into a hopeless situation and almost had killed Yi Futian. But at that time, the divine tribulation had come for Yi Futian. Even most cultivators of the Yi Imperial Palace did not know what number of tribulation this was for Yi Futian, nor did they know how exactly his cultivation status was. They only knew that he had always been in the Renhuang plain. But what about now? Now, Yi Futian was already the same as Heavenly Emperor Jiang and the others. If he had been one with the world before and was a natural being, he was now an independent entity. He was independent of the world and did not fit into the world at all. He was himself his own person. After the divine tribulation, he was no longer restricted by the world. He existed outside the laws of this place. His life would be immortal. Even if this world were destroyed, he would still not be ruined. The great emperors of the 5 ancient god clans narrowed their eyes and stared at the figure in the sky. The 5 ancient great emperors had come for blood today, wanting to kill Yi Futian, whom they saw as an ant. But they could not kill him. Yi Futian was still alive and had blocked a finger of divine power. He had already surpassed Renhuang and come to their level, entering a complete plane. Now, they probably would not be able to handle Yi Futian anymore. "Congratulations," a voice said. The human ancestor's face appeared high in the air. His actual body had not come here. This was formed by his consciousness, but the emperors might still enveloped the land. He said to Yi Futian, "With this step, you broke the path and demanded from the heavens. You touched the fringe of becoming a deity and forged your law. If you take a step forward, you'll be in line with the heavens." The strong cultivators were shocked inside after hearing the human ancestor's words. Had Yi Futian gone through 3 tribulations? There were 3 divine tribulations. After the 3rd tribulation, Would you become a great emperor? But the human ancestor said that he had to take another step to be in line with the heavens. Could it be that Yi Futian still lacked one step? Or was there another unknown secret to the so-called divine tribulations? There were only a handful of great emperors in the world. Only they knew the truth of the divine tribulations. At this time, Yi Futian still had not figured out his cultivation state. His cultivation had always been different from the others. He had gone through 2 tribulations already, but his problems differed from the others. After 2 trials, he'd still been in the Renhuang plain. Now, after the 3rd tribulation, he could feel that he had already surpassed the Renhuang plain. He had taken the step that he'd always been stuck at before. He had even become his own entity now. Different from the outside world, he was separate from it. He was himself. When he pointed his finger, it contained his law, or in other words, the divine power of law. However, it seemed that he still had not reached the great emperor plane. It was like he was in between the two. He had not experienced the near-god plane, but right now, he felt that his cultivation was above the near-god plane but below the great emperor plane. He was in a type of complete state, but he could not surpass this completeness. As the human ancestor said, if he took this step, he may very well become a great emperor and be in line with the heavens. You all have the opportunity to become an emperor. Even though I don't believe in fortunes, I anticipate the age of gods that the Buddha of destiny had foretold. Let today's matter end here, the human ancestor continued to say. He seemed to want to stop today's conflict and end it here. The dark sovereign scoffed coldly, sneering inside. He was starting to believe the Buddha of destiny now. Not much remained of the 500 years of emperor fate for Donghuang the Great. There were only 30 years left, while Yi Futian had had a breakthrough at this time. It seemed to foretell something. Would the human ancestor and Donghuang the Great allow Yi Futian to take that last step and successfully get onto the path of the great emperor? End here. Yi Futian looked down at the 5 great emperors. They had come and committed the massacre. Yet now, the human ancestor said they all had the chance to become gods and wanted to end things here. But Yi Futian guessed that these 5 great emperors may have gone to the human realm. That was how they could reach this state before him. In that case, these 5 people counted as the human ancestor's partners. The human ancestor naturally did not want them to continue. Before this, Yi Futian had rejected the human ancestor's invitation. The human ancestor's words are naturally in order. Even though Yi Futian's heart was filled with murderous intent, he still spoke up and accepted the human ancestor's words. The human ancestor, Donghuang the Great, and the others were all here today. They probably would not give him the chance. Plus, his cultivation state wasn't stable, and he had not figured it out yet. He could only let them live for now. You all retreat too and cultivate well, the human ancestor said to the 5 people. They all nodded, and then their figures retreated. They gave up on the hunt and left this place. I am anticipating the age of gods, the human ancestor said, and then his face disappeared. Donghuang the Great glanced at Yi Futian and left as well. You must be careful after this, the Dark Sovereign reminded Yi Futian. The consciousness of the 6 emperors was left one by one. The cultivators of the other forces also retreated. The storm seemed to have ended just like this, but they all knew that Yi Futian would not let it go just like this. Plus, there were only 30-some years left of Donghuang the Great's 500-year emperor fate. Next, there would be an even more significant storm in the world. Chapter 2793 Aftermath. After all the strong cultivators left, Yi Futian looked toward somewhere else. It was where Shi Kaiyaro was. He naturally knew who had helped make time for him in the last battle. If Shi Kaiyaro had not become one with the West Emperor, he would not have survived the tribulation at all. In the distance, Shi Kaiyaro turned her eyes and looked towards him. Yi Futian could sense that Shi Qiao's temperament was changing at that moment. Her eyes did not have the arrogance from earlier. She seemed to have returned to the past and had a bright smile. "You're back," Yi Futian whispered to Shi Kaiyaro. "I came back to bid farewell." Shi Kaiyaro smiled brightly as if she did not mind that she was about to leave. The West Emperor had given her control of their consciousness so she could bid farewell. Yi Futian lowered his head slightly, and sadness appeared in his eyes. He and Shi Kaiyaro first met in a great battle. He had just gotten involved with the ancient god clans at that time. Shi Kaiyaro did not defeat him in that battle and thus grew curious about him. Later, the two clans became allies, and Shi Kaiyaro was a good friend, though they only talked about their alliance and cultivation. However, in this critical battle, in the most hopeless time, it was Shi Kaiyaro who had sacrificed herself to save him. Is there no other way? Yi Futian asked. If you say that, my ancestor won't even give me the chance to say goodbye anymore, Shi Kaiyaro said while laughing. There was still a bright smile in her eyes. She and the West Emperor were either or. She had already decided, so she naturally would give way to the West Emperor. Don't be sad. When it was discovered that I was compatible with my ancestor's consciousness, my fate was already decided. It's just that today's matter moved it forward in time, Shi Kaiyaro said, not minding it. It's worth it that it could be helpful in the most critical battle. Plus, I saved a future great emperor, the person who will rule the 7 realms someday in the future. Isn't it worth it? Shi Kaiyaro continued to speak. Countless thoughts appeared in Yi Futian's mind, but he did not know what to say. He just felt heavy sadness. So what if he was a future great emperor or would rule the 7 realms? She would not be able to see it. The things he lost would not be returned. I have become one with my ancestor. I will not completely disappear, Shi Kaiyaro said. I can continue watching you move forward. Yes. Yi Futian nodded and also smiled. He did not want her to be so sad during this farewell. That day will come. You just wait. At that time, maybe you'll have a chance to come back for a visit, Yi Futian said. I promise, Shi Kaiyaro said. Okay, I must go now. See you in the future. See you in the future. Yi Futian nodded solemnly. Then Shi Qiao's temperament changed gradually and soon became someone else. He knew that Shi Kaiyaro had left. The goddess of the West Imperial Palace no longer existed in the world. There was only the West Emperor. She left, the West Emperor said. Yi Futian already knew this. Looking at the West Emperor, he bowed. Thank you, Senior, for saving me. This was her choice and her last will. No need to thank me, the West Emperor said. Of all people, the West Emperor probably understood Shi Kaiyaro the most. He had felt her thoughts and understood her intents. No matter what, it was you who acted, Yi Futian said. The West Emperor had replaced Shi Kaiyaro, but could he resent the West Emperor? It was the other who had saved him, and this had been Shi Qiao's choice. It was her last will. But why would she do that and sacrifice herself? Yi Futian's figure went downward. Many gazes fell upon him. Of the Yi Imperial Palace cultivators, many had suffered significant injuries. It was fortunate that the 5 great emperors' target was Yi Futian, and they were dismissive towards the rest, so they had not massacred them. Otherwise, it would have been tragic. They all looked at Yi Futian. He had survived the desperate situation. Yi Futian had broken through the shackles, and this was great news, but none of them felt happy. They had suffered a catastrophe this time. Countless cultivators in the outer realms had died, turning to dust in the hands of the 5 great emperors. Return to the Yi Imperial Palace. Heal and recover, Yi Futian opened his mouth to say. Yes, Palace Lord, everyone responded, bowing. Then Yi Futian's figure vanished. He left this place alone. The strong cultivators could feel Yi Futian's sadness, and he blamed himself. However, no one would blame Yi Futian. 5 great emperors had come for blood. What could Yi Futian have done? He still wanted to bring the 5 great emperors away from the Yi Imperial Palace at the last moment. He'd done everything he could. Plus, Yi Futian had almost died before he'd broken through the constraints. No one knew what he had experienced, but it was obvious that it wasn't as simple as what they had seen. Yi Futian returned to his cultivation court. He looked up at the Yi Imperial Palace in shambles. Even the sky above the relic had been stabbed through. There were cracks everywhere. Shi Kaiyaro had constructed this Yi Imperial Palace, and she'd put in so much effort. Seeing the scene before him, he felt even sadder. He turned and went before the mountain. Then he sat down and closed his eyes. Instead of being sad, he had more important things to do. Cultivate. Take revenge. First, he had to figure out what his current cultivation state was. The cultivators of the Yi Imperial Palace returned eventually. They all went back to their pavilions to cultivate and recover from their injuries. Hua Jiyu's figure floated to the sky above the Yi Imperial Palace. She glanced at where Yi Futian was but did not bother him. Instead, she said to another place, "Lord." "Lady." Lord Chen came over and bowed slightly in greeting. "Lord, please arrange the rebuilding of the Yi Imperial Palace," Hua Jiyu said. "Yes." Lord Chen nodded. "Pavilion Lord Mu." Hua Jiyu then looked to Daoist monk Mu. The Daoist monk also came over to listen for orders. "Please temporarily take out the pills of the alchemy pavilion, especially the healing pills, and divide them among those who are renewed," Hua Jiyu said. "In addition, please treat the injured." "Yes, lady." Daoist monk Mu bowed and left. "Masteress, is there anything we can do?" Fang Kun and the others asked after walking towards Hua Jiyu. "Yes." Hua Jiyu nodded. Her gaze turned elsewhere and fell upon a beautiful figure. However, Hua Jiyu did not call her over. Instead, she walked over to the girl. The girl also noticed Hua Jiyu, and her pretty eyes looked over. "Qingyuan." Hua Jiyu had come to Xia Qingyuan's side. "Yes," Xia Qingyuan responded. "You are skilled in the great path of life," Hua Jiyu said. The 5 great emperors had come and committed a massacre outside. There might be many injured people. "Let's go out together to look." "Okay," Xia Qingyuan answered, nodding lightly. "Fang Kun, Little Ling, you lot come with," Hua Jiyu instructed. "Yes, Masteress." The group nodded. "I'll go too." Hua Qingqing came over. Naturally, Hua Jiyu would not refuse her. The group headed out together. Blind Tai, Old Ma, Chen Yi, and the others followed suit. The 5 ancient god clans had already retreated, but they were still afraid and on high alert. At the same time, outside the Yi Imperial Palace, Yu Sheng had also ordered the strong cultivators of the Devil World to guard the outer regions. He guarded the sky above the Yi Imperial Palace. Meanwhile, Yi Qingyaro had come inside the Yi Imperial Palace and looked to Yi Futian. There was someone else there. Ling Long quietly guarded in the near distance, but she did not disturb Yi Futian either. Yi Futian cultivated quietly and alone in the cultivation court. There was a hint of loneliness. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.